there was no drug addicts, rehabs wouldn't exist. It's like jails. If there was no criminals, jails wouldn't exist. And that's the sad truth is
We're
that...
in the house.
Yo, god damn, bro.
Corey's in the house.
How did you even get in here?
Yeah, man. I just
Yo,
broke in.
holy
Just went through the
shit.
window.
Did you
So,
really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's my boy Corey.
How's it going, guys?
So,
up?
here, grab a
Got
chair.
the collar shirt on, you know, I'm all
That's
ready.
what's up. There you
Like
go.
one of those transformation TikToks, like, here I am.
Yeah. So I don't know how we're gonna set this up here. Give us a second, guys. Everybody's like, "Hi, Corey."
It's
Hello,
a scuffed
Corey.
production.
Bro,
One-man
did
production.
you fucking like ride a fucking
No, I just
magic
walked.
carpet down here?
I just
Holy
walked.
shit.
We're neighbors. Who cares?
All right. So how are we gonna set this up so it's like in the mix the best
We're
way?
gonna play drums, right?
No. It's too late for that.
Darn it.
They all want me to. They
So
constantly
we wake up
want
the
me
whole
to.
house. I already broke through the window. Okay, you start back here and go. Are you matching me on purpose? What's going on?
No. Normally,
Are you sure about that?
Yeah, I'm a big black and white guy. That's just how it goes.
Yeah.
What's up, Tay?
What gives away the big black and white like thing on the wall right here? Or the poster right there?
Right.
Or the, you know,
Or the floor of every mystical lodge everywhere, ever.
yeah.
Just
The
pops
best
you.
part about your live streams is seeing you using the pink chair.
I know. You know how many times I've had to explain it? I've had to explain it probably about a million times. What's the subject? There is no subject.
Subject?
Yeah.
Subject?
What's a subject?
Yeah, there is no subject. We're infinite consciousness, my friend.
Yeah. Damn, it's sorry. We got 231 people in here. So this is my buddy Corey.
How's it going? My name is Corey. I'm also a natural law teacher on TikTok. But I usually create video content. I'm a video creator. So I'm not usually on TikTok, although sometimes I'll clip the videos into verticals and put them on TikTok. But yeah,
Tell them what platforms you're on.
not TikTok and every other platform. Just kidding. Well, it's more so, I'll be honest. TikTok's a little, but because we're on TikTok, I'm going to say it's amazing. So it's an amazing platform. It's awesome to be here. I have no problems with it. It's not cringe at all. And it's totally fun. Every time I open up the app, there's totally something that I expect every time.
Yeah, very predictable.
Yep, it's totally predictable. And yeah.
Almost like it
totally
knows
doesn't
what
throw
you're
me off.
yeah.
Yep, totally not an instant gratification like you have to watch within 1 minute. So, yeah, I'm a video creator. I teach something called natural law, and we've discussed things about occultism. It's crazy to think that my neighbor is somebody who's into deeper ideas than just what you see face to face, what we see with religions and philosophy and everything we're taught in school. No, there's a much deeper to that. And the fact that I could meet somebody who's like next door who is studying that knowledge when barely anybody in the world understands that knowledge or even knows that it even exists is very crazy.
The very word occult itself means hidden, right?
Occultist, yeah.
And occultism is the study of the things that are hidden.
Now, why is that important? Because, knowledge is power, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if certain knowledge is being kept from you, then do you have the power to control your own life? Do you know what's happening, what destiny you're creating for yourself? One of the top occult documents that I recommend people, I don't know if you know about it, the Kabbalion.
Yep.
At least it's based on Hermetic principles.
Yep.
And if you don't know what Hermetic principles are, this stuff is life-changing. Like, people start learning about Hermetic principles, and they're like, wow, this stuff really, it's crazy. You can look up online. You can get free copies as well. Like, there's PDF forms. This guy doesn't have a computer. Can you believe that?
Getting there. They know my backstory. They know I'm
just going to be bashing you the whole time.
Coming
that's
out of the mud. Yeah, that's fine.
I kind of do that a lot on live stream. I kind of just, that's how I roll. A little bit of drama doesn't hurt, especially on this platform. I'm probably, not going to lie, I'm probably more fit for this platform because I can joke around a little bit. But what we talk about is a little serious too sometimes, unfortunately, because it has to be. Because if there is this knowledge which can help so many people today, and it's being kept hidden from them, it's like, oh my gosh, I want to tell the world.
Right.
And that's what's happening right now. There's a lot of awakening happening. Yep. You just mentioned that your face was on a TV show or something, right, in Hulu?
Yeah, 2020 Dateline.
Yeah, that's crazy, dude.
Yeah.
And guess what else happened recently? So I'm in a network with someone named Mark Passio, who is a de-occultist. That's what he calls himself. So he brings a lot of the knowledge, like the Kabbalion, Hermeticism, Rosicrucianism, all that stuff together. And he makes presentations. His presentations are amazing. If you guys don't know who Mark Passio is, definitely recommend checking it out. But I'm in his network. He's from Philly, and I've met him in person. Many people. He travels pretty often sometimes. But he got accepted, like just today or yesterday, into band.video. You know what band.video is, right?
No, explain it.
So, and I don't want to probably go too much into detail on TikTok, but it's InfoWars platform. Like, that's their platform.
Like
because
Alex Jones.
Yeah, because they're censored on YouTube. They're censored on all these different platforms, so they have their own video platform.
Right.
They brought Mark onto that platform, which is amazing because they don't have anybody on that platform that talks about occultism or this philosophy.
Yeah.
Like, he's the first person. And this is, like, the way to get more people onto that knowledge. And, like, nobody expected him to do that.
Right.
That guy has a big reputation for me, like, when it comes to Alex Jones. Because whatever you think of him, right? I mean, people have many different views of him. He's been doing this work for, like, over 30 plus years, Alex. I can't say, like, his craziness, would you expect him to not be crazy into this world? I'm curious, what do you guys think? Like, I wouldn't expect somebody like Alex, who's been trying to share information with people for over 30 years, to not be crazy or look crazy.
Right.
Or even because the media attacks them, that he becomes a crazy person. So,
Darcy, what platform?
Is that a question for me?
She just said, can you message? She's one of my visuals.
So band.video is like their video platform, but Mark Passio, he has his own stuff, like What on Earth is Happening. And then I'm in the network called One Great Work Network, so onegreatworknetwork.com. And so, like, this is basically, like, if you think about it, I'm 2 steps away from InfoWars, like, being that I know that, Mark, and then, and I was just talking to Mark's producer just a couple of minutes ago, and, like, really cool people, down to earth, they care about freedom, they care about truth, and, I don't know Alex Jones. I've never met him, but I think if he allows people to have a platform, which he's done with doctors in the past couple of years, he's done with celebrities in the past. He talked to many celebrities. That's why people go on his platform. Like, it happens all the time. And some people will be like, "Why'd you go on InfoWars to share your information?" It's like, because I was invited as a guest. Like, why else would I go on there? It's just duh.
So, do you think Alex Jones is censored in any way?
Well, he is definitely censored on every platform, but he has his own website. So unless they attack the DNS, which is like the domain host, that's the last step that they can do to get people off of the internet, is just attack the domain host. But they haven't done that yet. Of course, there's probably some kill switch somewhere, or there's an EMP bomb that can go off, and the whole electric grid goes down, and there's a bunch of scenarios that you can just come up with. But it's just the fact that you want to challenge the mainstream, and even these people in independent media, they need new knowledge. They need new people coming in with new ideas, because if they care about freedom, then they need this knowledge that's purposely being kept hidden from people that gives them their freedom.
So Deli Snap said, what would be the benefit of listing?
Of listing onto that website?
Yeah.
Well, because there's a lot of people. And there's a lot of people, if you go to that platform, it's mostly like right-wingers.
Okay.
And people who are like political minded. And here you have somebody who's outside of politics, who's saying, like, look, it's a theater show, it's all controlled. Right. Or at least it's a system that is not built to teach you to own you.
Right.
Because that's the only way you achieve freedom, is by practicing self-ownership. You can't get that through voting in a new politician or writing down a new law. Just because you put something on a piece of paper does not automatically make you free as a human being. That's a practice that you have to create for yourself.
What's your educational background?
Self-taught. Yeah, self-taught. I mean, you get it from so many different sources, and at a certain point, it's like I interviewed over 50 people for the End of Slavery Summit, and you're talking, some of them are doctors, physicians, I mean, well, same thing, and then, some of them are like researchers, like 9/11 researchers, Richard Gage.
Yeah.
I mean, he's an architect, so he literally created like demolitions and tried to find different simulative things, and worked with huge projects, $1 million projects, and like, David Icke is another person I interviewed. I mean, he's around the world now. He's banned in the EU. He can't even go to the EU, like any country there. It's like, I think over 30 something countries. It's crazy. he's banned for speaking his mind.
Right.
And that's in person, like nonetheless online, which they go after them too. I don't know, how far people are willing to go with this. And it's like his main message is love people and open your heart, and you read his books, this is what he says. But the media likes to say, oh, well, he talks about lizards, and he talks about people being lizard kind. And it's like, if you watch his presentations, he's like citing doctors and scientists who are studying the reptile brain.
Right.
But unless people get that context, they're going to assume, oh, yeah, he thinks lizard people
They're jumping
exist.
on the conspiracy train, yeah. So I think, so she said, what's the benefit of listing as a sovereign? So I think she was...
Oh, as a sovereign?
I think she picked up on some...
Well, I didn't know. There's nothing to do with like sovereign citizen.
I know. She thought she interpreted it that way, which is crazy.
No,
we're not going to go down that road right now.
When I say sovereign, right? Like, let's make a distinction. Like you even said it yourself. Sovereign citizen is like a contradiction.
Yeah.
Like, how could you be a citizen and sovereign at the same time?
Right.
The word sovereign comes from super reign, which means above rulership.
Right.
So if you rule yourself and you are your own ruler, then by definition you are sovereign. Now, do you need piece of paper or a certain title to prove that? No, you act in alignment with that truth to say, yes, I can breathe for me, I can walk for me, like these are my own legs, this is my own lungs. Like that is self-ownership. Once you recognize self-ownership, you attain sovereignty. Mm-hmm. But like saying on a piece of paper, I own myself is not the same as actually practicing self-ownership.
Right.
So all these sovereign citizens out there, if you're still a citizen in a country, which by definition means like someone is ruling over you, then you're not ruling yourself. How are you sovereign? Everybody's a sovereign. Everybody's not a slave. I would like to think everybody's free. It doesn't mean that they act in alignment with it,
right,
just because they are.
I feel like it's the mindset. It's the mindset which is so driven into you from such an early age that you don't really know of anything outside of that mindset.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Sarah said, but laws will restrict you. They try.
Yeah. Anything man creates usually attempts. And what I always like to do within a lot of my works is look at the natural reality. It's like every law is basically a restriction on somebody else's freedom. It's usually an opinion of man. It's not timeless. It's not universal. It's just, again, some person and what they write on some piece of paper, and they call it law. And the crazy thing, it's not that's the problem. Okay? Even though I just said, like, yeah, it's a piece of paper and it's not universal and timeless, it's not that's the problem. It's the fact that people believe that it's actually legitimate, like it's actually real. Like, people believe that it's, like, they take it like a religion, basically. Government is the biggest religion. They believe, like, this is the holy text, and if they don't obey it, they're going to go to jail, they're going to... They feel like God's punishment is going to come to them, which is some people in some costumes and some identities which they presume to have some sort of authority. So that's what it comes down to, is this idea of authority. Like, does anyone have a higher claim over your life and property other than you?
Right.
Does anyone have an inherent authority, like vested in them as a human being? Or do we all naturally own ourselves? And once you break that illusion of authority, then you realize that's just an illusion. There is no such thing.
And I don't want people to get misconstrued and think that what we're talking about is like go commit murder or go
the exact opposite,
or go intentionally break the law or like rise against authority, but
it's the exact opposite, because unless you have moral grounded principles for self-ownership, you cannot be free. So for people to equate freedom with no rules is not getting the fact that in the 1800s, when you had to free slaves, you had to train the populace or help them understand that slaves were meant to be free, which required a rule. Frederick Douglass, a former slave himself, said it was the laws of nature. I call it natural law. That's what we've been talking about. William Lloyd Garrison, one of the most influential abolitionists at the time, constantly said this. It's the laws of nature. It's through morality and moral suasion is what he called it.
Right.
So how come morality was actually the prerequisite to freedom? Because without self-ownership, which comes through understanding morality, you cannot attain freedom to begin with. So you can say, oh, well, let's just get rid of the government. Let's just get rid of a law. It doesn't work.
Right.
Even if you get rid of it, guess what? It'll just come back again. Because people still believe that they need some sort of authority and control of their life. They think they shouldn't be responsible for themselves.
Right.
They don't think they properly own themselves. They think, yeah, 1% of my income, 2%, 20% of my income should go to some stranger because they put it on a piece of paper. We call this taxation. But really it's just theft because it's somebody taking something that belongs with you. Like, you own that money. Do you not? Like,
right.
Like where do you say, okay, well, no, you don't own it because of this or because, like, tell me, what's the justification for the greater good, for the common good, that we need to tax or violate one individual for the collective?
So somebody said there needs to be law, though there needs to be some kind of order. Don't some people believe that things are put in place for people that can't control themselves?
Yeah. So obviously there's going to be thousands of solutions if we let the free market decide what to do with anything in this life.
Right.
But that includes defense as well. Why do we need one solution to defense? People can hire private police if they want to. They can arm themselves. That's the whole reason why we have the Second Amendment in America, and probably why we're still one of the freer countries in the world.
Right.
Because we have the ability to defend ourselves. And it's easy to conquer a nation. It's easy to make somebody your slave if they have no way of defending themselves. Look up, how do you make someone a slave? It's like capture, war, jail. It's like that's literally everything a government does. And the first form of government was the first form of systemic slavery. It can't be systemic unless you have a system in place. It was known as Sumeria. About 4,000 something years ago. These people, they thought they had a divine right by God to rule over other people. And this whole idea that somebody has a divine right still exists within our society, because people still believe in kings and queens. Like, the whole reason why our founding fathers revolted against the British is like, we're done with royalty. But guess what? We just replicated that system into a new form. Because like even Aristotle said himself, it's like a republic is still a monarchy. It's like you look at other researchers as well, Toynbee. I mean, he said the same thing. They're all basically forms of monarchy, and actually people prefer monarchies over other forms because they're so simple to understand. It's like you have a king and queen, and then there's the subjects. But now we have like this complex system of you have to go through this court and this system and that system, and then these presidents and these people, and it's like, holy moly.
Yeah.
So then a lot of people will say, well, what if we just limit the system, and if we perfectly limit it, it will be okay. But it's still missing the point of this underlying belief system, which, again, is this belief in authority, this belief called statism. And unless you understand this belief system, it's basically a hopeless cause. And this is where democide and governments rise and fall over and over again. But guess what? I'd say within the next 10 years, you're looking at a world that understands this belief system. I guarantee it to you, because it's skyrocketing and nobody's going back.
It has.
Nobody's going back.
It's blown up heavy within just the last couple of years alone.
Nobody's going becoming truly free in their mind. I say an abolitionist. That's what I call myself. Trying to end slavery. Nobody's going back to voting for left or right after they realize what statism is. Nobody, because it's such a profound truth that it's almost unbreakable.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. Read The Most Dangerous Superstition by Larkin Rose. It basically breaks it down in every single aspect that, for somebody to expect me to explain how the whole world works, it's just funny. Because it's like the whole idea of government is the idea that one person or few people get to decide for everyone else how the world works.
Right.
But everybody gets to decide how the world works together. There isn't one person who's the sole arbitrary judge of everything in existence. You are above the law because you get to decide what the law is. But no, in the free world, we all are the creators of law. Let's say, two people have a dispute with one another and they want to settle it with a third party. Okay, so that person's going to produce a law, essentially, for us, between us. And then let's say we get in dispute. Well, no, you're the third party. But no one person is the only third party. No one person has a monopoly on law. And since there's no monopoly on law, there's no monopoly on violence, because that's what government's also called, there is no tyranny. There can't be tyranny. There can't be democide. Democide is the #1 cause of unnatural death.
Right.
This is so new to so many people. What I'm saying, Dominic, is probably incomprehensible to most
To the
people, because
majority.
it was for me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm speaking right now, and I don't know if people can tell, but like, I'm passionate because I came across it, and it blew me away. Asking simple questions like, again, does anybody have a legitimate right over your life and property other than you?
Right, like we get right here. People are on board. They like I said, it's blowing up. We got politicians are supposed to work for the people. Key word, supposed to.
Yeah.
We got, he knows his stuff, very cool. Someone said, unless it's a true democracy, which I think was in response to something you said. Sarah said, no, it makes total sense.
I would be, if I was listening to this, I'd be asking a lot more questions.
Yeah.
Like, it would not settle with me easy to think, wait, all forms of government is based on a superstition, a belief system that we ourselves have, and we are the ones who are actually creating tyranny. It's not politicians. It's not the people we vote in office. It's not the laws.
It's our mindless march of, like, misunderstanding, so to speak.
It's our belief that these people have any sort of authority, and even if you were to say, like, oh, let's put a good person into the circus, let's put a good person into politics, it's like, even when they do, on a practical level, they don't get anything done. It's hard because they get in and they end up defeated, or they end up targeted or whatever, and they end up like, oh, well, I can't change the system, or they end up corrupted because power corrupts people because they're not supposed to be in that position of power.
We were just talking about that the other night, how power corrupts
it's
people.
funny because people say, like, we need to put the right people in power, and then the next moment
somebody
they say,
literally just said that.
and then they say, well, power corrupts people, and it's like, well, if power corrupts people, then what makes you think putting someone else in power is a good idea? You can be the best person in the world. If you're giving somebody something that doesn't belong with people, and it's not supposed to be with people, then that's it. Like, power belongs with you. Empowerment is, again, that knowledge. If you don't educate the public, they don't have freedom. Thomas Jefferson said this. He said, educate the mass of the people. It's the only surest way to liberty. That's what he said. And all the philosophers, like I told you before, like some of the oldest philosophers also died to their own governments for trying to educate the people about who they are. And they were trying to find solutions, say, well, what if this system would be better, this system would be better? And then the politicians would run with it, pillage the populace so they can have their own paycheck and steal these philosophers' ideas and apply it into government.
Right.
I mean, like, the philosophers were always the ones innovating in society, usually always getting the flack, and then the politicians come along for the ride, stealing their ideas and then getting a paycheck with it. That's usually how history goes in a nutshell.
All right, so what do you propose people do? What's the alternative?
And probably people don't even know Mikhail Bakunin. Bakunin, do you know who he is?
No.
Yeah, another philosopher. So talk about Karl Marx. Everybody knows what communism is, right? I don't know if that's safe to talk about on TikTok. But
we definitely have to.
Do we?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know because I know
the live will get shut down if there's like.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, at Karl Marx, who's an amazing person, and everybody loves Karl Marx, by the way. Okay, I'm gonna totally be like, So Karl Marx, right? Everybody loves, obviously. Communism. People love, and so. There was this guy in the same time period as Karl Marx. His name was Mikhail Bakunin. I'm probably not saying his name right because he was Russian, and they were both, Russian, basically. And they were like friends. They knew each other. But there was a very big difference between Bakunin and Marx. Marx said, hey, the state is a problem. The state is connected to slavery, but I think in order to get rid of the state and government and to make it smaller, we need to give it more power, so that way everybody has equal distribution of wealth, and this is what he called communism, as like this great new thing that will help people get out of that capitalism, that evil capitalism.
Right.
And then Bakunin was over here like, okay, why would you give the government more power to make the government have less power? And he literally wrote, like, he predicted exactly how it would go. Like, he said, communism will fail, it will turn into, like, this huge government, and it will be the exact opposite of what he said. Like, and he was, like, warning people at the time. He was kicked out of all the events. Like, he was censored at the time in the 1940s, before that. and it was crazy. So if people can do research on Bakunin. So like they consider Marx a collectivist, and Bakunin more of like a social collectivist. So like more along socialism, where like they were just opposed to each other. Even though most historians would probably group them together,
right?
Like because they're friends and whatever. He predicted basically the rise of that ideology, and it happened exactly as it worked, like as he wrote in his documents. And so I can show people too. Fabian Liberty did a good thing on that. He's a live streamer on Twitch.
Yeah.
But anyways, not to go on a tangent, because we can go into history and all sorts of things. The important thing is that people within their own lives practice or learn knowledge that has been kept hidden from them. Right. So the Kabbalion is a good resource to start.
Definitely to start. That's like the bare bones for people who wouldn't really have any prior knowledge of occultism or anything like that. And then going forward from there, I would recommend the what is it called? Oh my God, I'm drawing a blank. It's not the Codex. It's Corpus Hermeticum, and it's basically the direct teachings of Hermes Trismegistus.
Which he has a backstory too, right? Hermes,
Yeah, so he was the Egyptian god first, and then he was adopted by the Greeks, but he was basically like the god of wisdom, the light bearer, basically, or essentially the
I heard all sorts of things about Hermes and, what people were trying to do to him at his time.
Go on.
Crazy stuff, man. There's so much knowledge out there that, again, you're just not gonna get it from the mainstream.
Right.
But, again, Mark Pasio, I think, is the perfect example of somebody who has personal experience within the Church of Satan. Like, he was a Satanist, a priest in Anton LaVey's Satanism, and he came out of that church, said, hey, this is what they're teaching people, and this is what they're keeping away from people, and it blew up across the internet, not as much as it probably should have,
right,
but enough to reach me and other people. And his natural law seminar is very powerful, and I'm glad that he's reaching a lot more audiences. But if, let's say, you're not into the occult philosophy, because you don't have to be into philosophy. I don't think somebody has to necessarily read into every little thing, even though it helps them gain a really deep sense and understanding about the world. As long as you understand the concept of that belief system I'm talking about, that's the bare minimum to understand that these people do not have the right to rule. And that's what it all comes down to. It's these people who claim power, which, by the way, most good people don't want power. It's mostly bad people who want power to get away with their wrongdoing. And most good people are like, man, I don't want to go through that system. But, the people that want power, it's they're just one person. Hitler's just one person. These evil people in history is just one person. It's always the masses that follow them. And so, one of the Kabbalion principles is as above, so below, the principle of correspondence. So if you're a leader, the person that you're looking up to and putting all your faith and hope into is a corrupt tyrant, then you're probably not just as good.
Right.
This is what we see in society, where it's if you have bad people in charge or bad people below, as above, so below, it's going to reflect in the society, because people are putting their faith in these people, which they treat like gods, because it's please give me more freedom. I need permission to be free.
Right.
It's that's not true freedom. And it makes me, understanding slavery and reading The Abolitionist, again, that's my focus. It's crazy, because people have this mentality, which a lot of the former slaves were talking about themselves. And it's called mental slavery. Bob Marley said mental slavery, emancipate yourself from it. Martin Luther King Jr. said mental slavery, as long as the mind is enslaved, you can never be physically free.
And just so you guys know, obviously you guys know this is basically what we talk about in almost every live is, and someone here said, I gotta be honest, the word occult is intimidating to this Irish Catholic girl.
Yeah.
And I know that I think you missed out on my last one or two lives, but then I got a response here that said it's not like that at all. So basically, we covered it in the beginning. The word occult just means hidden. It means knowledge that's hidden. It's, things that are unseen. And occultism is the study of those things that are unseen, or knowledge that's unseen. So when we were talking the other day, remember I told you guys about angel magic, and I told you about how basically everyone who's at the top of the pyramid is practicing these things, and they keep it for themselves. Remember I said, I legit said the powers that be keep this knowledge for themselves. I said, what do you guys think? Why do you guys think the poor stay poor and the rich stay rich? Is because these people in power are practicing this system of magic, this natural universal system of magic that's meant for everyone.
Yes.
They're literally practicing occultism. Mm-hmm. Right in front of your eyes. It's unfolding in front of you every single day, and unless you understand it and have the knowledge to be able to see it and pick up on the signs, then you won't know.
Yeah.
So it's literally being done by the people that that the masses look up to or put into power. Yeah. And meanwhile, the masses think that it's like such a taboo word and such a taboo thing to even go near, and they don't want to touch it because it's considered evil. Meanwhile, the people who are ruling over you are literally doing it on a daily basis.
Think of any topic that you think is important to you, whether it's health or it's philosophy or it's history, and look up Manly P. Hall. See what he has to say about it. This is somebody who basically founded a lot of occultism.
Marxism is a real thing.
Yeah. But, look up Albert Pike. See how he predicted World War I and II. And see his predictions for World War III. I mean, see how things are working in the world. I mean, see Manly P. Hall. Just look up these people. A lot of people who study this stuff will go really deep into it because they find great value in it. Especially, by the way, and this is a common trend, it's people who came out of dark places in their life, or people who came out of religions and found out those religions are not really helping them. And, this, I think that goes
my story.
But all of us have a shadow somewhere that we have to address, whether it's in our childhood or throughout our life. We run into different experiences that cause us to look down different rabbit holes and find out more about ourselves, ultimately. So we can continue ourselves and find purpose, find some direction in our life. So some people are going to resort to religion. And I'm glad that you are going into occultism, because it's more than that. Right. It's the foundations to religion. Look up the word animism.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean, this is considered the root to all religion, but yet most people in religion don't know about it. Look up deism, another root to all religion. It's just the basic idea that you believe in a creator, but you don't believe in it. You know it because of the laws in existence. Some people will even say it's just the intelligence. It's the great work. Mm-hmm. It's you can understand how it operates, and therefore you can understand what you should do within your own life within that greater intelligence. You have intelligence. You have the ability to perceive that intelligence. Again, as above, so below. Right. If you want the world to be trashed, then start putting trash in your body and start thinking trash. But if you want the world to be great, then start not thinking trash and start thinking great. Right. Start giving your body great foods and great information, things that will empower you. And I'm not talking about like new age type of spirituality where you just meditate necessarily and don't think about anything that's negative, because you have to at some point in time address the shadows in your life, which is can be pretty tough.
Yeah.
That's not an easy process. There's some people, and there's a lot in the community that I'm in, of people who have had so many different life experiences, and this is something that they have that I don't. I'm very fortunate, but I want to be able to help these people, and I want to be able to spread awareness, because any of us are susceptible to different things in our life.
Taoism.
Oh yeah, Taoism is the other one I was going to mention. Yes, Taoism, another way to say it. Mm-hmm. I mean, so the Tao Te Ching, one of the oldest documents. I mean, really simple to read. I read this one, I'm like, this is so easy. It's like you don't even need 1,000 priests interpreting the Bible for this.
Right.
You can read it yourself. It's like basic poetry, and it's profound because it's constantly looking at polarities. The Tao symbol is the yin and yang symbol. So it goes far back, and I definitely like Taoism. It's all about simplicity and inaction, the value in inaction, which I think is also very powerful.
Right.
Because it technically, that's considered one of the first anarchist documents. So when I say the word anarchist, it means...
Somebody said this is a free TED Talk.
Free TED Talk. Yeah. I guess it is. Well, that's the funny thing is they ban some people on TED Talks too.
Yeah.
That's again like you're not going to hear about that unless you hear about it.
Right.
So, and the same thing with occultism. It's like it's secret. It's our knowledge. Unless you hear about it, you got to like get in the know. You have to be in our secret family, our secret bloodline. You have to be. It's like no, we're exposing this to the public. We're sharing it with everybody because everybody deserves this knowledge. You can decide for yourself. You don't have to agree with me. The whole idea of anarchy means no rulers. It means I don't get to decide for you how to live your life. You don't decide for me how to live my life. We can help each other, we can guide each other, we can educate each other, but we can't impose our will on others with violence. Because that is every single law in government. Leo Tolstoy, the #1 author, writer in the world, is considered an anarchist. I mean, you read his writings, Slavery of Our Times, literally probably closest thing to the thing I wrote about slavery and the abolitionist. He came to America after the abolitionist and studied the same exact abolitionist I'm talking about. And that's why he was, very pacifist, because a lot of the abolitionists were pacifist. And he said, hey, government and law is the source of slavery.
Yeah.
Like this is for most people today it's like what are you talking about? We need governments for security. But then you look up Josiah Warren, another influential person, an abolitionist, somebody who invented like the first rotary press, somebody who did orchestra. He was an orchestra leader. I mean, amazing people, and they don't look like anarchists. They're not wearing bandanas. They're not burning down buildings. And what they're saying in their documents is he says, and this is not even 100 years after the American Revolution, he says explicitly, government cannot protect the rights of individuals. It's actually a violator of rights every time. And, I think America is the perfect example of a failed system of limited government. Yeah. Our founding fathers said, this is the perfect limited system. We have a constitution, it's going to keep everything limited. And, George Washington was giving some warnings within his writings, like saying, well, if you create a Federal Reserve Bank, it's going to cause international interest. So they kind of knew that what they built was not perfect. But then on the other hand, some people were like, this was founded by God. God wrote this document. It's like, no. A bunch of human beings came together, made this document, and then said, we the people, assuming the consent of all the people in that nation. So Lysander Spooner is the best, by far the best abolitionist to research. If you don't know who Lysander Spooner is, this guy, and I recommend reading his writings. He has one on natural law as well. He was a deist, so he protested religion, he protested politics. I mean, the guy was definitely an outcast. He wasn't even with a lot of other abolitionists, but he was a lawyer, so he was well respected in this time, and there were like tributes to his grave and everything. But he had such fantastic works, but he detailed the whole idea of rights, the whole idea of law, broke it down as a lawyer, used their system, explains that you basically never gave consent to your own government. The people say the Constitution is this contract that we have to follow. It's like, I didn't sign that contract. Did you sign that contract?
Nope.
It's like, it's a social contract. Like, what's a social contract? It's like, if I write right now, Dominic, I have the right to steal your money. Oh, wait, never mind. Let me make it sound better. Congress shall have the right to tax the populace.
Right.
And that's exactly what the Constitution is. Just a piece of paper that says, and makes it sound a little bit better, that somebody gets to tax or steal a portion of your income.
Yeah.
And, everybody thinks that this is legitimate because it's an official document, because it's the Constitution, because
it's the law.
Because the authorities made it.
Yeah.
That is the very problem, that belief system. That belief system is the source to all evil on this earth. It's statism is another word for order following. Just going with the orders of some people who proclaim to rule over you. It's like someone tells you to do something. Hey, Dominic, jump off a cliff. It's like, no, what are you talking about? I know I should not do that for myself. Unless you know, you will not say no.
Right.
You have to know in order to say no. Otherwise, you're just going to be a yes man who goes with the flow and just follows orders. And that's what they want people to be in order to be the perfect obedient slaves, in order for people to continue being happy and content with their government. And that's why limited government and libertarianism is actually more dangerous than communism.
Yeah.
And this is going to surprise a lot of people because it's the illusion that you're free. It's the illusion that you still have and because you're happy with your slavery, happy with the fact that you're getting whipped less or that you're on a better plantation, you actually accept the fact that you still are under the control of somebody who can take that away from you at any time, or put in a new law or whatever, because that system is in place that empowers people to do so in the very first place.
Yeah.
If you give people the ability to control your life, somebody's going to say, hey, I want to control your life, because
Right.
you're literally opening the door saying, hey, I want this to happen. But if you are in control of your life, you're in control of it. It's like, are you 51% in control of yourself? How about 60, 70%? It's like, no, I'm 100% in control of myself. It's like, do you own this chair? It's like, do you own like a portion of this chair? Like, no, it's either you own it or you don't. And then when you talk about percentages, the other idea is democracy, which, you know, is not a republic, but whatever. A democracy, it's like, okay, 51% of the people get to impose their will on the 49%. That doesn't make a wrong action right.
Right.
Like, morality is not legality. They're two separate things. And for people to say, well, we need laws to act moral, it's like basically saying, well, I want laws to be morality. I want man to dictate morality, because morality is a natural thing. This is why we call it natural law.
Yeah.
So where's the distinction between a natural law and a man-made law? Where's the distinction between a man-made right and a natural right if people are going to say things like this? It's like, we're born with inalienable rights by God, by nature, but you have to make sure you sign a birth certificate the minute you get born into this world, and make sure that you do this, and make sure you do that, and sign this contract which you never signed, but because you were born here, and you gotta pay taxes every time you earn something. It's like, what? And then people say, well, we just want to get rid of that. We just want to get rid of that. We want it limited. Tell me exactly how you're going to do that. What is it that you want limited? Because I guarantee you everyone's got a different view of what that is. And not everybody's going to agree with it.
Yeah.
If you want a service, voluntarily provide what you want for that service. It's called voluntarism. Look up voluntarism. Okay? Again, anarchy means no rulers. It doesn't mean no rules. There's always rules.
Yeah. Keep going.
So, you know, you can't be free without those rules. And voluntarism is essentially underlying what those rules are. That you can do anything so long as it's consensual, so long as it's a voluntary interaction.
Yeah.
And so the goal of what I'm trying to create, in simple, to keep it really simple for people, is a voluntary free world. That's the goal, and that's the action. You want to know what the action is? Mm-hmm. Stop coercing other people. Stop giving way to violence. Stop supporting immoral systems. That's the solution. Your own beliefs. And then, it sounds simple because it is simple. And once you understand it, it becomes even more simple. Then you share it with others. And that's a different process of its own, right? Mm-hmm. But that's the action, is sharing with others. Do you think the abolitionists in the 1800s were like, okay, we're going to end slavery by passing a new law? Like that wasn't the end of slavery. The end of slavery was changing the minds of the masses of saying, like, this is immoral. Why are you doing that?
Right.
So you can't do that through any other mean other than education. So education is the only prerequisite to freedom. That's it.
And you know what was crazy was that during slavery, almost every slave owner would torture or beat their slaves with a Bible in hand.
Yeah, a lot of the slave owners, like, they practiced the Bible, and the funny thing is the abolitionists, a lot of them were religious too. So there was a dispute going on, right, of, is the Constitution pro-slavery, anti-slavery, is the Bible pro-slavery, anti-slavery? There was like this huge feud of all these things, but the point is that the conversation...
There are several verses in the Bible that do kind of point towards slavery being appropriated. There actually is a pro-slavery website out there, which I found online, which lists all the pro-slavery documents and literature, and it's legit. It's a real website. I'm like, unbelievable. And guess what? They said, like, real liberty is absolute slavery. Like, they actually equate freedom to slavery in that, because they think it's so natural to have slaves. They actually make the case on this website, this slavery advocacy website, that you need slavery in order for society to function. Like, they're still stuck in this 1800s mentality. Which, by the way, this is all the same excuses people say for keeping government today. They say, without the slaves, we cannot pick cotton. Without, our money being stolen from us, we cannot build roads. It's like, by the way, already the roads are not being built by the government. And by the way, probably look outside the house, there's probably a bunch of potholes in different communities anyways. But it's like, most of the money's going toward war anyways, and things that people don't support. Put your money where you want to support something. And are you going to coerce someone against their will if they don't want to support something that you want them to support?
let's say you know you have a neighbor who you know can pay for something that you want done. Are you going to say, man, I want to use violence against them? Like, most people are not going to do that. That's the funny thing. But people actually, everyday people, legitimize the fact that it's necessary to do so. And not only do they give the possibility to it, they guarantee it. Mm-hmm. So people say, well, what if about this and what about that in a free world? It's like, yeah, there's always going to be evil. The difference is, with government, you're guaranteeing evil.
Right.
With anarchy or freedom, again, which is just abolition of governments, abolitionism, in a nutshell, Leo Tolstoy and Lysander Spooner, Josiah Warren, William Lloyd Garrison, Aidan Ballou, and I can go through the list, Jeremiah Hacker, all these people don't learn about in school, and they built their own towns, fairly successful, till the governments came in or did something, or some some situation happened. And Josiah Warren built his own towns. These guys literally ran the Underground Railroad. They literally took in slaves, saying, "Hey, you can be away from your slave master, but you have to run away with us, or we have to arm you." It's like, holy moly, you can't run away from these systems today. They're watching you. They got everything on you. But it doesn't matter. It's the same thing as back then. Once enough education happens, and all you need is about 1% of the populace to understand something, and it's over. All you need is for something to go trending, a hashtag, end slavery, slavery still exists or whatever. I made a summit, the End of Slavery Summit. Check it out. 50 speakers and hundreds of resources. The End of Slavery Summit. It just puts it all into perspective for you.
We're friends. We're friends. We're not brothers. People think we're brothers. They keep asking
we're brothers. Who cares?
Oh yeah, we're brothers from other mothers.
Listen,
everybody's a brother and a sister.
Especially if you're a friend to humanity and you don't want violence in any form, then we're cool. And by the way, self-defense is not the same thing as violence.
Right.
To be explicit, self-defense is preventing violence and, thwarting off violence, okay? And that's something that everybody should do if they want to maintain their freedom.
How do I make you I'm going to make, Tay, I want to make you a mod and I forget how to do it. How do I do it? Tell me real quick. And I am watching the comments on my other phone.
/mod? I don't know. That's how they do it on Twitch.
Yeah, I forget how I did it the other day. Click her name and then mod her. Yeah. So
but there's so many ways we can go with this conversation.
Oh, manage. I got to hit manage.
Here, I'm going to follow the chat on my phone. That way I can see if there's any comments.
Yeah, you watch it too. There you go. You watch it too.
And that way, if you guys have any questions...
you could hit him
feel
right
free
away
to challenge me.
I'm going to grab another water. You want anything?
Oh, I have no internet connection? Oh, I don't have Wi-Fi. Oh, I don't need Wi-Fi. I could just connect to...
You can get on my Wi-Fi if you need to.
No, that's fine. I'm good.
You need water or something?
No, I'm good. Thank you. I got water right here. All right, mobile data. That works. What up? What up, ladies and gentlemen? I can read chat there, too. How's it going? Let's see. Bro, your name is so long on TikTok. Holy moly. How do you say this to people? Dominic Anthony Saege. Saege.
Gotta put Sage in there.
Saege.
Means wise. And I forgot my water when I went out.
Yeah, but it's got an extra E in there.
I know, because the AE is different.
Yeah, AE is the old language. Oh, man. It's not how people are going to type it, though, man. It's fine. They'll find you. I looked up Dominic. I got you, right away, I'm pretty sure. One of the first results.
And it makes people harder. It makes it harder for people to find me with my government.
Okay.
So I want to definitely touch on...
Sure. Challenge me. What is it that I didn't cover?
Well, because... No. You covered a lot. People were telling you to breathe in between your words.
Yeah, I speak pretty crazy.
But the majority of the people in here know that we constantly are talking about like spiritual freedom.
Yeah.
And I think that is extremely important for people to experience and understand before they even start really getting into this next level that we've been talking on, because that's the real mental captivity of, I think, people today, is they're so indoctrinated with this, and I don't want to minimize anybody's spiritual practice, and everybody that's in here knows that I'm extremely respectful when it comes to any type of religious organization, you know, Catholicism, I was raised Catholic, everybody knows that, Christianity, Muslim, anything, but that it's not like, you have to understand, like, when we talk about government, these major religious organizations are a government in themselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so, like, let's differentiate that, because some people get that confused. What's the difference between an organization, a business, a school, versus a government, right?
Right.
So, these are voluntary institutions compared to a government, which is coercive. That doesn't mean that churches or these institutions are not going to corrupt you or deceive you or whatever. It just means that there's no violence backing their orders or decrees.
Okay.
So you can participate in a church or not. So, like, if you think about it, the church is, like, kind of set up like a voluntary government, which, you know, is not really a government by the definitions that I proposed, you know, saying that every government is backed by violence, or as Leo Tolstoy or all these other philosophers have said.
Right.
So, although a religion is set up in churches, they have their priests, they have, like, different ranks and different people that you look up to, they don't have the right to coerce people against their will. Nobody has that right. Like, it doesn't matter who you are. If you think you have that right, then, you know, like, you're a psychopath. Like, yeah, I should coerce people. I should, like, and that tends to be the people who seek power, you know? Mm-hmm. So, yes, religion and government is connected, but I told you government is the biggest religion.
Right.
So, like, the difference is like, government is the biggest one that people believe in. But these other religions, I can say they can be dangerous. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I mean, but anything could be dangerous. Some people will say veganism is a religion, or flat earth, or whatever is a religion, because people get stuck in their worldview, and they think that there is no other way out of that worldview. Like, they think this is the only way, and there is no other solution. And it's funny because people might think that of me when I say, oh, well, we need a free world, and this is the only way we achieve freedom.
Right.
But it's kind of funny because I'm literally admitting to the fact that I don't get to decide how the world works.
Yeah.
I'm literally saying I don't get to impose my will on everyone else. That's what government does. I'm not. So for me to advocate a free world where I don't get to rule anyone else and no one gets to rule anyone else is like, literally, that's the complete opposite of saying my ideas are the best, or like, believe me. Like, I'm not asking you to believe me at all. I don't want you to believe in me. Don't believe in any one person.
Right.
Look at the knowledge. Look at the ideas. Learn for yourself. Believe in yourself, for goodness sake. But yeah, religions, the problem is, like, there's different types, right? You have sun religions, you got the moon religions, the Western religions, Eastern religions. A lot of the Eastern religion is coming overseas right now. And Alan Watts, I think, is a good example of somebody who brought a lot of the Eastern stuff to the West, saying, you know, look at Buddhism, look at Taoism, look at these, and Stoicism, other philosophies. Some people, I went to a Catholic church, they said, oh, Buddhism is not a religion, it's a philosophy. I'm like, okay, is that supposed to be like an insult or something? But they didn't like the fact that I was sharing with them ideas from Buddhism at a Catholic church. But it's like, excuse me, why can't I share all the ideas? Like, why can't I learn from everybody? Why do I need to accept just one worldview? The word religion comes from the Latin verb relegare, which means to hold, bind, or thwart from forward progress. Okay? There's another definition for it called religio, which means to bring together. So it's like, whatever one you want to look at here, it's either you're bringing people together, bringing knowledge together, or you're really binding people in place in their conscious development that they cannot evolve as an individual spiritually. And so the difference often with like the Western and Eastern religions is the Western ones tend to externalize everything. Look up to God, worship in order to attain happiness. Whereas Buddhism might just say you are the Buddha. And all you got to do is look within yourself and learn from yourself so you can master yourself. And I think people are starting to realize like the Eastern medicine and Eastern philosophy is quite powerful and very, very useful, especially in the Western world. But I wouldn't also just throw out, Catholicism or Christianity either, because they all have some sort of
and that's what we talk about a lot in here is that there's truth within it all.
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
truth within it all. There's importance within it all. But it seems to be like when you climb that ladder and you get to like a certain point where you almost feel, cut off from what could be, next after that.
I think a good example is Crowley, right? We were talking about Aleister Crowley before. So this is where discernment comes in. anytime you think, if you're a philosopher, you're a thinker, or anything in this world, like you're constantly discerning, whether you want to or not, you within your life are making choices. Do I want to do this or do I want to do that?
Right.
Now, when you use active discernment in your decision making, you are saying, well, okay, is this a better idea or is this not? Like, is Aleister Crowley acting crazy here, or is what he's saying the truth?
Right.
And am I able to read so many different documents and not just attach myself to one or another? We were talking about the idea of attachment. And I think in Buddhism, they call that like one of the biggest sins, right? Or things that are dangerous, is desire and attachment. Because if you attach yourself to identities or titles or forms of government or ways of doing things, how are you going to improve?
Because you end up losing yourself in that image of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, the Taoist texts support all this, where it's like, if you actually do less, you achieve more. If you attach yourself to less, and if you, rule from below, you don't even see there's a ruler. It's basically not even a government. It's the best form of government you've ever lived in. It's a voluntary government. One of the abolitionists in the 1800s I studied was Charles Lane. Yeah. Charles Lane advocated a voluntary government, and many of the people, his peers, were like, well, then it's not really a government. Mm-hmm. And it's just funny because it doesn't matter what term you use. The point is that you understand the context. The guy was against, using violence in the case of law. So, he wanted a voluntary government. And so people agreed with him. They just were like, well, the terminology just seems a little bit weird. So Amos Alcott, Bronson Alcott, I think that's his name. He's the founder of Transcendentalism. If you know about Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau, like that's basically like one of their mentors. They were all abolitionists, by the way.
Okay.
And they all worked within these other abolitionist circles. People mostly hear about them. They don't hear about these other guys. You know why? It's because they were not as radical. Like they were not actively saying this is the problem with government.
Right.
Like Henry David Thoreau wrote a few things about civil disobedience, self-reliance. You should not be under the control of anyone else. But he doesn't go to the underlying root cause, which is that belief system, which William Lloyd Garrison does. And this guy is seen as a radical, going on the streets saying, "Here's the Constitution, I'm going to burn it." He was blamed by the media for all sorts of atrocities that he didn't commit just because he was teaching people knowledge with his newspaper called The Liberator.
That other people didn't want people to have.
The slave masters and the governments. Because, and as Salmon Chase said, who was a politician himself, he said, slavery could have never existed if it weren't for the governments that ever maintained or aggregated, allowed its existence in the first place. He said, you can try to be a private slave owner, but without assistance from the government, it's pretty difficult to maintain that. Think about it. You had one slave master over 30 slaves on the plantation. These guys were ripped out of their mind. They were jacked. They could have taken out the slave master at any time. What kept them in their slavery was their own belief system. They didn't know how to read or write. Frederick Douglass said the thing that freed him was knowledge, learning how to read and write.
Knowledge is power. If knowledge is kept from you, then
you cannot achieve freedom without education. I don't know how many times I have to say it, but it's so evident. And yet people in politics think that playing the political game is going to achieve freedom. It has nothing to do with education, has nothing to do with the foundations of freedom or educating the populace or enlightenment or any of the ideas we've talked about. Doesn't even apply to medicine. If I were to apply medicine to politics, it doesn't even work either. Because they're not treating things holistically by saying things have to go down this way and it has to be treated this way and that way, and they're not looking at individuals. Everything's collective. It's all about collectivism. That's collectivism is basically government in a nutshell if you add violence to the equation. Because let's say I want to get together, let's say somebody wants communism. If it's voluntary, I have no problem with it. If someone wants to practice socialism, whatever. Practice whatever you want. If it's voluntary and you're not making other people coerced, then I don't have a problem with it.
Or other people suffer.
Now maybe I see some people are being deceived, maybe I see there's some problems, I'm going to speak up. I'm going to educate other people. And maybe I see someone's getting actively harmed, then maybe I'm going to go to their defense. But I'm not going to go on a crusade saying holy moly, I need to create an authority, I need to give them this title and this badge, and I need to, this is all made up out of existence. And this is the reason why they have to indoctrinate us the minute we're born into this world at a very young age. Look up the Dr. Stanley Milgram experiment. And then look up the Stanford Prison Experiment. These are two of the top most banned psychology experiments in the world. And the reason why they're banned is, well,
you can find Stanford Prison Experiment.
Oh, that's easy,
You could find
very
that on,
popular.
I think it's on Netflix, actually. They did a documentary thing about it.
Yeah, and what does it prove? It proved the fact that if you give certain people the idea of any legitimacy of authority, they gave people...
So yeah, let's break down.
Yeah, sure.
So the Stanford prison experiment was they took a bunch of college kids, right?
Yeah.
Out of Stanford, and they basically went to a penitentiary, and just a bunch of college kids, and they split them into two groups, and they made one of the groups inmates, and they made one of the groups the guards. None of them were actual inmates or guards. They just took a bunch of college kids and did this. And over the course of, I think, not even a couple days, they completely mentally brainwashed themselves into thinking they were actually guards and completely taking advantage of their power.
That authority literally was like built into them. And this is that belief system I'm talking about.
And then the kids that were playing the inmates over the course of a couple of days actually started to just completely subject themselves to this authoritarian torture and torment from these people that were their peers 2 days ago and weren't even actual prison guards. It was crazy. It's all was just.
And then they came
mental.
out of that. They came out of that experiment. They're like, I can't believe I did what I did.
Yeah.
They went from like kids with like no problems to all of a sudden turning into like tyrants.
Yeah.
Like where they were abusing their power simply because they were given the role or title of guard.
Yeah.
And they ended up like, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I acted like that.
Yeah.
And then you look at World War II and then you wonder why thousands of soldiers followed the orders of the few, because they were brainwashed into doing so. And brainwashing does not happen necessarily like MK Ultra and these experiments. It happens through political indoctrination. It happens through statism. The belief in authority, mental slavery is what I call it.
Which is just as bad in my book. It's
yes.
Yeah.
Again, that's what keeps the slave on the plantation. It's what makes them think they're meant to be a slave. Like that's the root cause of the problem.
Right.
There was a fake quote going around by Harriet Tubman where she said people think it's fake. They don't know if it's actually fake or not. Right. It's the funny thing. And she said, I could have freed more slaves if I could have convinced them that they were slaves. It's like a fake quote. No one knows if it's real or not. It's been shared all across the internet. But it's funny because it's still relevant. It's still true.
Yeah.
When you line up the psychology to that, Stanley Milgram experiment is by far the best experiment, though, to prove this belief system. He actually wrote a book about it, too, called Obedience to Authority. Literally talking about this belief system. Again, the best book I would recommend is The Most Dangerous Superstition or The End of All Evil by Jeremy Locke. Just look it up. The End of All Evil. Very simple to read. Like, kids can read that. Like, it's that simple. The Stanford, that one, we described that. But the Stanley Milgram experiment, they sound the same. This was a psychologist, and this is when it's very difficult to explain, I feel like, because they do all sorts of things. But there's a guy in a different room, right? There's a scientist. I'm a scientist. You're a person who has to follow my orders.
Right.
So you already see where this is going. Somebody has to follow the orders of an authority figure, the scientist, and you have to electrically shock someone if they get an answer wrong in the other room. And you keep increasing the voltage, each question they get wrong. So at a certain point, like, you realize, like, they're in pain because, like, you're shocking them. And you're like, do I have to continue this experiment? And you see, and this has been replicated all across the world. And, like, last one was, like, 2002, and it was on TV many times. And And it just shows, like, human beings are willing to suppress their conscience, willing not to think about what's right and wrong, so they can do just because some authority says.
Yeah, follow the order.
And so it makes you think, in psychology, they leave out the missing dots, and they don't have occultism either to their benefit. So it makes you think, human nature. It's just human nature, that humans are just going to act evil. But no, because these experiments also proved that you don't have to be like that.
Right.
You don't have to suppress your conscience. You don't have to follow orders. There were some people in the Stanley Milgram experiment saying, I'm not going to continue this experiment anymore. Like, I'm not going to follow your orders just because you say I have to be a part of this experiment, just because, he got the question wrong. I'm not doing this anymore because I'm hurting the other guy. And, like, they actually stood up. But it was very few people. Like, it was, like, 10% of the participants, like, in every study.
So do you think with this, like, all this knowledge, it's crazy, is because...
And that's average people following orders just because they think someone's an authority. Like, there was a college project I found online of a kid who was holding a street sign saying, beep twice if you see the sign, like, before you pass. And nobody beeped. And then he had a security guard hold up the same sign, and everybody beeped. It's
That's
like
wild.
it's just like, I don't know how much more evidence you need that people believe that other people have more rights than them, and then they wonder why they're losing their rights.
Yeah.
It's like, and then they wonder why, oh, we have inalienable natural rights, but they're asking for permission from the slave masters to give them those rights. So how are you free? It's so obvious.
Mm-hmm.
And once you look at these psychological studies, when you read these books, you look into occultism, the knowledge that is kept hidden on purpose,
Mm-hmm.
it all falls apart.
And it's so wild because, you know, especially, I could speak from personal experience, when I was younger, and I had always felt drawn to, and I'm going to always go back to occultism because that's where this all started for me, like, as far as my journey goes.
Yeah.
And, like, you even, you know, you see it in, like, Disney movies, and you see, you know, the reference to the occult and all these things. And it's so funny to see, like, you know, I watched Hocus Pocus today with my kid, and they reference occultism in that movie.
Yeah.
But you'll see, like, thousands of people on TikTok, like moms, that are, like, advocating to never watch Disney again because it's talking about occultism. And that's, like, the brainwashing that I was flooded with as a kid, to think that, like, this shit was evil. And then I started really reading into it and kind of just wasn't afraid to cross that threshold into, you know, I really have nothing to lose. I've went this way for so long and it's gotten me nowhere, so I'm going to try it out and see what's, you know, like, what am I being kept from? And then when I finally dove into it, and I'm like, there's nothing evil about this. Why is it being ingrained into my thought pattern that it's evil and it's taboo and it's forbidden and don't go near it, because if you do, you're signing a deal with the devil. And
and then it makes you actually want to look more into it.
Right.
That's the funny thing. It's like what Plato said: good people don't need laws to act responsibly, and bad people will find a way around the laws.
Right.
So then what's the point of the law?
Yeah.
It's like you're tempting people to act evil, or tempting people to look into knowledge when you keep it hidden from people, because it's knowledge. If knowledge is knowledge, and knowledge is the only good, as Socrates said, then that knowledge is meant for everybody. Why would it be meant for few people? Like, unless it's knowledge that is not helpful, but all knowledge is helpful, otherwise it wouldn't be knowledge.
Right.
You know, that's where you can differentiate belief versus knowledge. Like, belief, it's like, I can believe I can jump off a cliff and I won't get hurt, but there's actual laws dictating what's going to happen to me.
Right.
That's where natural law comes in.
Yeah.
You apply that to behavior on a grand scale, you aggregate it as well. If I harm somebody, I'm now justifying the fact that other people can harm me or other people. It's the golden rule. And by allowing that, I'm now aggregating. This is the law of manifestation, may you call it, natural law, law of attraction, karmic law, moral law. There's like a billion stinking names for it. And what's going to happen is chaos will happen, because it's the result of manifesting a certain wrong action. And this is the thing about government, which is why you can't limit it. Because if you allow any violence, it's bound to grow. If you legitimize or believe that any violence is legitimate, it's like, then evil's going to grow. If you say slavery is right, if you just get the perfect condition, you whip your slave this much less, and you get, you know, if you get them on the right plantation, give them the right conditions, guess what? That's still a pro-slavery position. So all those libertarians out there, all those conservatives who want the small, limited government, are still supporters of this belief system, still supporters of slavery. And that may sound really, really bad to people, but if they just watch this live stream, or any of the parts we said, it's like, it's so evident. And you got the psychology experiments to prove it, you got the laws of the universe to prove it, you got these books which are groundbreaking, like literally changing people's worldviews. It's the end all, man.
So, people say you need a YouTube channel.
I do have a YouTube channel. So look up Corey, Nature is the Answer. Just look up Nature is the Answer, you'll find me. Or look up the End of Slavery Summit. I mean, a lot of the resources I talk about, you'll probably run into my content from just doing research. You know, I've made documentaries as well, like talking about limited government and how it doesn't work. I've made ones on every abolitionist. I'm still working on that. One on Lysander Spooner, one on Aidan Ballou, one on Josiah Warren, these guys that I mentioned. Look up Natural Law. Again, you're going to get Mark Passio. You're going to get some of my content, other people. Will Keller, he's great. Will Keller's fantastic. You'd get along with him so well. You'd get along really well with Logan Hart from the Wizard Factory. The Wizard Factory, it's a whole channel of his own. He talks about Norse traditions and like ancient occultism. I'm telling you, you're going to get along with so many people in my community. I'm sure we'll be collaborating a lot more. I don't know about in person. This is pretty cool, but regardless, yeah, just look up. My last name's too difficult. Like, at least, I mean, your name is so stinking big anyways, but it's like, Dominic Anthony Saege, right?
Yep.
Okay, see, I remember, thank goodness. But Corey, nature is the answer. So, that's it. Corey, nature is the answer. And I have a tap link with all my links. I'm creating a newspaper project, I'm creating a radio, and all sorts of different things to share the message. It's quite a bit. I'm very fired up and passionate because no one else is sharing it. Especially, like, even at my age, right?
Right.
But that's a different scenario. But I met some people in the network who's, like, actually younger than me, so I'm like...
How old are you now?
Wow. I'm 22. Right? Yeah, 22.
Damn, bro.
2023 now, but no, not 23 yet. So I basically follow the years. It's 2023, I'm 23, but my birthday's in August, so...
Mine too.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, August 3rd. You didn't know that?
3rd?
Yeah.
Mine's 4th.
No shit, I forgot that.
My dad is the 2nd. Holy moly, dude.
I forgot about that.
That's crazy.
So his dad's the 2nd, I'm the 3rd, and he's the 4th. That's wild.
You know, and it's funny because Mark Pasto, his birthday's in August too. All his Leos.
Somebody said, yeah, well, Leo, bro, listen. It's a fire sign.
Well, not only that, not only a fire, lion, but it's also a fire dragon. Year 2000 is the Chinese year of the dragon.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Somebody said you're 22 going on 64.
Yeah.
Mentally.
I think so. That, honestly, that has some downsides. I'm not going to, listen, I will be honest with you guys. Like, I can dance better than, 80% of people on TikTok.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. I used to dance all the time. I was on dance floors, but there's this knowledge is so important to me. I could be doing so many other things.
Right.
Like, I was inventing board games and stuff when I was younger. I was an inventor. And I could produce music and stuff. But, it's like I choose to put my time into this because it's, going to help people. I know it is. It is. When people in politics, it's like they're praying and hoping that their politician gets elected for some law that they hope will get enacted and they could get twisted at any moment. They're wasting their time. And then people pour tons of money into those people. It's like, guys, drop the politics. It's such a low consciousness, low spirituality, low just everything. It's a low life profession. I mean, if you want to be lying, if you want to be fighting other people, watch my documentary called The Ugly Truth About Politics. Breaks it all down. I wrote a stinking massive script. It has everything in it. Just look up The Ugly Truth About Politics, share it around. It talks about everything I talked about. It's unreal, dude.
Yeah, so, I was talking to somebody about this whole kind of thing the other day where, I try not to make it sound as though what I'm saying is that everybody who's a politician is a bad person.
As a person, no.
Right. But once you get to a certain level of power over so many other people, that doesn't come without decisions that require you to obstruct someone's personal human rights, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Which is completely
nobody has
immoral.
the right to do that. That's the point. It's
Right.
People say, well, these politicians are acting corruptly. It's I expect them to act corruptly. Mm-hmm. If you understand the knowledge that I'm sharing with you, it's not a surprise to me because
Right.
people are giving them power to be corrupt. So they're going to inevitably be corrupt, or somebody's going to end up being corrupted. It's you give people the power to control your life. Like I said, they're going to control your life.
And then what happens when that power is threatened, and that's when the violence comes in and stuff like that. I mean, we could go back even look, I said it the other day, look at all the blood that was shed in the name of Jesus Christ, who people think,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
But so that's a separate scenario though. So again, I look at the abolitionists and what they did to end slavery. Mm-hmm. There wasn't much blood involved, partly because they were pacifists and they didn't want to. And it worked. I mean, Gandhi was a pacifist,
right.
And it worked pretty well to achieve what they wanted to achieve, even though, of course, the freedom that he provided didn't last either, because he's not hitting the root cause.
Right.
But for the time being, it helped. It's like a temporary fix. But what I'm looking for is a generational sustainability through keeping knowledge in circulation within the public. Not keeping knowledge for few and just having moments in time where freedom is given to people and these endless cycles of death. I'm here to end that. You can end that cycle of democide. It doesn't have to exist anymore. And democide is actually something that a professor wrote about. It's a whole book. But it's something I mentioned because it's a shock factor. It really is. Like, World War II was not even 100 years ago from now. Slavery was not even 200 years ago from now. And time flies by so quickly that for people to think, oh, well, it's long gone and all that, we don't have to worry about it anymore. It's like, how do you know that? Because I can guarantee you the only way to get there is through this belief system. And it's the same belief system that involves slavery. So, like, if you're going to end that, you have to arm the populace, but mostly...
with knowledge.
Yeah, with knowledge, exactly. It's like, you don't worry about, like, what's going to happen in the future. You do what is right no matter what. It's like, the abolitionists have sat there thinking, like, oh, well, who will pick the cotton? And they'll just keep thinking about it and talking about it. But, like, unless they actively partook in their effort to say, it's wrong, end it now. We're abolitionists, we're immediatists, we want to end it. There's no gradual, there's no, like, we have to limit it or get it lesser over time. They said, end it now, it's wrong, period. Like, that's exactly what we have to do with politics. And it's such a realization that people have not yet come to because they think they have to, like, get there gradually.
Yeah.
It's like if we just get there a little bit, eventually, at some point in time, they'll say, we'll let you be 100% free. It's like, no. It's not how it works. It's like, you're asking the slave master to be free, and or even in the case of the sovereign citizens, it's like you're using the slave system to free yourself. It's like, it doesn't make any sense when you break things down. But you have to break things down, and unless you had some of the prerequisites, some people might be joining the live stream now without what we talked about before.
Right.
And it's like, unless you understand that those experiments we talked about, and unless you understand the occultism that we talked about, you're not going to have the prerequisite knowledge to form a more calculative understanding. Like, do you know what the trivium is?
No.
So Mark Passer teaches the trivium because it's one of the most occult scientific methods out there to help you learn anything. This teaches people how to critically think. Like, so people like say, oh, well, this world is losing common sense and people don't know how to critically think anymore. Well, research the trivium, research the quadrivium. And there's several editions of it. This is something that I'm surprised you don't know about because it's really big in occultism. The trivium stands for grammar, logic, and rhetoric. It's the way you learn in critical thinking. And that's okay you don't know about it because there's plenty of things I don't know about that you mentioned. And those
like I said, that's why I'm here is to keep learning. Man.
Yeah. So we all have something to share with each other. And, of course, none of us are perfect. And, again, that's the reason why we can't rule over one another.
Right.
It's so funny because they're like, human beings are not perfect, so we need some imperfect people to rule over other imperfect people.
Right.
Well, what's going on here? Just start addressing some of the logic. It doesn't really make sense everywhere you look, but it's not even like it's one spot. It's not even like government provides a service. The service it provides is always a monopoly.
Yeah.
Like, for example, the U.S. Postal Service. Do we need one post office? Lysander Spooner set up his own post office in the 1800s as a lawyer, using their own law system, and they still took him down because they want to have a monopoly on the post office.
Right.
They don't want to be the only post office, the U.S. Post Office. He created the American Post Office. Nope, can't do that. You're out. Even though, thanks to him, we have lower prices in postal stamps because he provided competition. Well, so every time you pay for a postal stamp, just remember that Lysander Spooner, an anarchist, an abolitionist, a lawyer from the 1800s, was the one who helped you with that.
It's just like all the people who tried to make their own currency, like Lincoln with the greenbacks, and they all got shut down.
Well, you heard, there's a bunch of things, the Silk Road and all that.
Yeah. So for anybody who doesn't know what Silk Road is, you all been in my lives a lot where we talked about the dark web. Relating to the other main topic that we've been so heavily discussing for the last few weeks. But what's up, CC? So the dark web, if there's actually a documentary on, is it Netflix or is it Hulu? It's on Netflix or Hulu, and it's called Silk Road. And it's basically about like the creation of the dark web. And I think it was like, 2008 he started that? Right?
I don't know. I don't know the exact details. I just know that a bunch of people were arrested and stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's still operational today. Yeah. The dark web is heavy today. Yeah. But yeah, so...
Yeah, I mean, the dark web is what, like 90% plus of the internet? But yeah, I mean, the thing is like, we can go down rabbit holes. We can talk about all sorts of things. I always talk about this belief system because it's something that everybody can understand, and it's inevitable for the whole world to understand. It's just a matter of time. There's a movie that's coming out called The Jones Plantation. That's The Jones Plantation. And it's going to like perfectly describe what I talk about, connecting slavery to politics. And what the abolitionists were saying, and like using actors and everything. Like they have a full production. They've been working on it for years.
Yeah.
Larkin Rose and several others. They were like getting all the. They were making their own soundtracks. Like they're making sure this is like a full out movie, and it's like about to release. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be really cool. There's a lot of interesting projects. Like I said, I have my newspaper coming out where anybody can contribute. Like if you have anything that you write or want to share, like just get involved. Like, for people to think, oh, politics is the only solution is laughable to me. Like, I literally laugh. Because it's like, here's a bunch of projects and things people are doing that's helping people right now. And I'm not begging you for money. I'm not saying, vote for me. I'm not saying, I'm the best. Look at all these things I've done. Like, all these politicians that go up on stage with their huge ego. And then, it's like, come on.
So, would you want to, if she wants to get in, would you want to bring I could bring up a forensic psychologist in the box?
Whatever you want to
join.
do. Whatever you want. Listen, it's your stream. Whatever you want to do.
We're going to find out in a second.
So, these live streams, are they saved anywhere when they're done?
So they are, but the corny thing is that they're only saving the camera looking at you. So, like, I can't... Like, if I wanted this whole thing like this, where I could see the comments and everything, I would have to screen record it.
Oh, okay. So you'll
so
only
basically,
see us.
I'm just literally, we're just seeing us, like, so us talking, and even if I'm responding to a comment, I can't see the comment I'm responding. You know what I mean?
Wow, that's funny.
Yeah, so it's weird.
Okay, well, at least they save. That's good, because I was trying to record on my own computer just because I like to do that. I always backup record everything. But yeah, I do. Yeah, I have video content. I produce content like almost every day. I put out some sort of like YouTube short. I do YouTube shorts. I'm sorry I'm not on the TikTok trend, but I do shorts.
Yeah,
they do really well though. I get like thousands for shorts sometimes.
Yeah, my YouTube kind of has been.
Yours is probably bigger than mine because you go over a lot of like current stuff and everything.
Well, I just started it, dude. I just started my YouTube.
Yeah, but you're stinking huge on TikTok already, man.
Yeah, but that happened through this whole
ego.
court thing. Yeah. That happened through this whole court thing. What's the newspaper about? Good. Somebody wants to know.
That's good. It's called The Liberator 2, so I'm continuing The Liberator from the 1800s, like straight up continuing their newspaper, and bringing their message back to light. And again, we have all their text, all their documents. I'm working together with a guy who owns the Later Day Liberator. It's a blog website. He's a Latter-day Saint, so like he's kind of religious background, but like the dude writes amazing, and like he has a very strong foundation in a lot of these ideas. He's like articles have so much like text and documents. And,
fun fact, you know, the Church of Latter-day Saints was started by a Freemason, right?
Probably is. Nah. I mean, probably many things are, but yeah. He's cool. So I'm collaborating with him, but everybody, like this project is meant for everybody. Now, it has just been released, okay? It's not like yet official, like been launched. I'll have a launch on my channel if you follow. But right now the website is theliberator.us. Theliberator.us. There's actually a test you can take on the site where you can test your own knowledge. But I'm working with someone right now to code a test. If you're watching Crystal Spider, thank you for coding the test. It's a guy out there. He's like a Native American shaman in our community.
Oh, that's what's up.
Yeah,
that's cool.
He does like actual like ceremonies and everything. It's crazy. I mean, you have people from all sorts of different backgrounds. Yeah. It's so beautiful to see because these people have passion. He plays music and you're never going to see that in politics, these people with their suits and ties. I'm sorry, I don't mean to bash on politics all the time, but come on.
No, yeah.
Humanity is so, like, if they want to evolve in consciousness, it's so boring.
They have to they got to get out of their box.
Yeah.
And that's the thing.
Like I'm on a teleprompter. I'm going to look pretty and tell you
the
news.
Yeah, what's proper and what's not. And that's, I used to say that when I was a kid. I used to say, you know, I feel like we've lost our way as mankind. Like we've lost our connection with like what else is out there, you know what I mean?
So like I would just say connection to nature, right?
Do you vote? Someone asked.
No, because again, if you're participating in the political system, you're legitimizing it. So the abolitionists also didn't vote. So they could have voted for a new law that reduces slavery, but they recognized to say, no, again, you cannot end slavery by passing a law.
So
and they also said law is connected to violence because every law is backed by violence. So why support violence to end slavery? It's like doesn't really make any sense.
So what do you say about dudes like Martin Luther King and these guys who like really were trying to like shock the system, but were also in that political environment? Like were considered politicians.
Yeah. So some of them, like Frederick Douglass became more political toward the end of his lifetime too, right? Like so he started out with the abolitionists. Like if it wasn't for him meeting William Lloyd Garrison, Frederick Douglass would not have had a voice. Mm-hmm. And he would not have met Abraham Lincoln. He would not have gone to the White House and become the Republican, former slave. He went that route away from the abolitionists, and so they had some disagreements at the end, but they kind of all just had to reconcile because slavery did end. Chattel slavery did end, so they had to acknowledge the fact that's kind of good. So him as a former slave wasn't going to say that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's the same way as Martin Luther King Jr. If someone's going to give you a platform, and we talked about this with InfoWars, are you going to deny it? So it's if you give someone power, are you going to deny that power? It's so you have to take a really strong position of principle of what you want to do in this life. So Martin Luther King Jr., I don't think he really, was he a governor? He wasn't a politician. He was just there speaking for people and educating people. So I don't see there being anything wrong with that.
Right.
He wasn't directly supporting violence. He wasn't saying, okay, we need to pass this law to end racism. He said, no, we need to educate ourselves, look at the content of people's character. He did a fantastic speech, and the speech moved people on an emotional level. You can't get that emotion through passing a law.
Right.
You get that through speaking words of that really empower people.
So Bussin' said, what's his story? College, interest, social media only. Yeah. So, he's all over social media.
Yeah.
College, no. Right?
No, but I did go to an integrative nutrition school.
Yeah.
So I am a health coach, technically. So I started with health. I did, in talking to practitioners, seeing how the governments were limiting health practices as well. And it's like these doctors have cures for people, and then the government steps in and says, well, unless we say you can use it, even though the doctors know more than the politicians.
Yeah.
And then the politicians nowadays are acting more like doctors than the doctors.
So what's crazy is that, ironically today, this girl right here, Darcy, she sent me a video of, it's funny that she sent it to me because I don't ever remember even really discussing anything that related to we never really got into the whole, corruption in the Medicare and all that in the medical field, but, it was of a police officer in a court who was basically, he had two daughters. I think they were twins, if I'm not mistaken, but he had two daughters, and one of them died from cancer. Well, she didn't die from cancer. So the story is she got a shit ton of radiation treatment. And then after the cancer didn't really subside, they went and I went with this shaman type and did all this stuff. And the cancer eventually died, and then she eventually died. So she didn't die from the cancer. When they did the autopsy, they found that the radiation caused all these complications, and she wound up dying from the radiation.
Yeah.
And this was a police officer in his fucking uniform in a court of law talking about, how he wished he could have protected his daughter more and been more open to other things earlier on.
Yeah. And
I found that to be fucking profound, dude, because that's people, and that's another thing that people are blinded by, and we don't want to sound like we're I have a lot of friends that are nurses and friends that work in the medical field. I know a lot of good people that are within all of these facets of life, and it doesn't make, just because they're involved in these organizations, it doesn't make them bad people. Right. But at the end of the day, and we've spoken about this millions of times, everything is coming down to money and power. And the sad fact is that without sick people, there wouldn't be places like this to stay in business. I worked at a rehab, like I said a million times. Without drug addicts, if all the drug addicts in the world got clean and sober, there wouldn't be any $1 billion, $1 trillion a year rehabs that are functioning at an extreme rate all over the country. It's unfortunate.
They're basically like, yeah, we have more patients now than ever to treat. It's like, that's not a good thing. Like, the fact that more people are sick means you have more patients. The fact that you have more patients means that there's people that are more sick. Anyways, it's just mind-boggling. Chemotherapy is one of the common uses for cancer. It was developed with mustard gas in World War II. Like, it was actually used during the battlefield. It's like, people don't know the simple history of some of the medications that they use and what they were actually for. And, obviously that's a big topic, cancer and all that. But there's a lot of resources for people out there. Gerson therapy, I think, is one that's very helpful, or at least for people to know about, is just juicing, basically.
Yeah.
And juicing is very helpful for a lot of different conditions.
Not to be confused with steroids.
This is not, by the way, this is not health advice. This is not intended to treat, diagnose, prevent any, or cure any disease. FDA disclaimer, just letting you know. Anyways, because we don't have freedom of speech, even though they say we do, because they make up the rules and they whatever. Anyways. So, there's a lot of different techniques and stuff you can do, but always consult a health practitioner first. And it's so true, though. You have to say those things when you talk about it. I used to have like a video disclaimer. It was like 100 words long. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my goodness. But as a health coach, you still have to make those disclaimers because the medical establishment doesn't recognize health coaches yet. Yeah. Like, although health coaches can practice with people, and I have like a certificate and everything to do it, it's like, why do I need that to help someone with their own health? It's just crazy. It's like, again, you need permission to heal someone. It's like, you need permission to be free. It's like, sorry, sir, you're like 12 inches too far away from the curb. It's like, sorry, you're too tall.
So perfect example. I'm going to get this for you guys.
And by the way, you can have rules within your own business, your own organization. But again, it's not like you're making people comply with violence if they choose not to comply.
So this book right here, it's called The Path of Alchemy. And for those of you that don't know what alchemy is, it's like a chemical practice, but of like what would you say? How would you explain that?
Transmutation. Which still doesn't make any sense.
Right. So energetic healing and the world of natural magic, right? So through this whole book are basically concoctions of healing and ways that you can rid yourself of. This book mainly touches on like minor ailments, aches and pains, a few other things, but it literally states in the first several pages, the foreword of this book, to watch who you practice this with and where you reveal that you're doing it, because it's against the law in most places. And why is it against the law? Why is it against the law? Why have we in America commercialized, right? I guess that's how we could say it.
Yeah.
Commercialized the medical field.
We monopolized it.
We monopolized it.
Because we're saying only one form of medicine is good. Just the same way we're saying like this law or this, like we need the cops in order to prevent every problem on earth. And like they're minutes away when things happen in seconds. It's like, no, there's thousands of solutions. But because we monopolize certain solutions, then comes a problem. And by the way, for people who are like, well, in a free world, Google and Facebook and these companies would take over. It's like, no, they would have competition. There wouldn't be like mom and pop stores being kicked out because they're being taxed to death, and because these companies are getting handouts from the government, right? Mind you, and you can't really, if you look at throughout the history,
everybody's feeding everybody's pocket.
Yeah, but it's always politics gets its fingers in everything, right? It's like the little tentacles, and the thing is that there's not a single monopoly that doesn't get created without some sort of government assistance. And this is something to understand, which is why you have, people promoting capitalism, even though, 100 years ago, capitalism was like the biggest enemy. Because people are now realizing, wait, the problem is not capitalism, it's the government influencing the market. The government coming in saying, this is the solution, you must stay out of the solutions, this is the only one.
Well, because again, it's just like, it's just like what we were talking about before with, if everyone had the information to free themselves, it would threaten the positions of power, it would threaten the authority, it would threaten the money flow.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with healing or anything of that nature. It would threaten the major corporations of this land, and it's really upsetting, dude. It's super upsetting.
Yeah, but I mean, honestly, it's like you found your way out of it because of the knowledge. So, like, at the same time, while you're seeing all these bad things, you're also getting good things for yourself.
Right.
Like, so it's kind of funny how that works.
I say it all the time. I say the devil you know is better than the devil you don't.
Yeah, that's a good way.
You know?
But it's like, you just want to bring that to others, and that's what pains us. It's like we see there's so much good in that we can get ourselves involved with, but, like, we want to bring it to others. And, you know, that's why it's like, you know, you had a slight hesitation the other day. I was like, I want to bring this knowledge to others. And I was like, we can't keep knowledge hidden from anybody. And it's like, there's a part of some people in this, and people who study this knowledge who say, I can't do it. People are not listening to me. People want to remain ignorant. People just, they're going to be people. But that's the exact same mentality that the people that rule have.
Yeah.
Or the people that truly rule, the social engineers, like the dark occultists, as you may call it, the people who understand this knowledge. It's not the puppets they put on stage. It's obviously the people behind them, okay? And these people have an understanding of the occult knowledge because they write about it, they talk about it, and it's like very open. And they don't show themselves in public. And when they're confronted, they usually don't say anything. Rothschilds is a good example, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, Luke Radowski would literally, like, try to confront him on the street and, like, get nothing out of him. The guy lives in some castle with, like, a bunch of occult symbols all over it. You know, you just look at UK, look at England, look at all the occult symbols all over it. You're not going to think it's an occult symbol, but think about it. Why do they have gargoyles, like, on the top of buildings? Why do they have, like, 2 pillars on the top, you know, in every building? It's because it's all built on these foundational understandings of symbolism.
Right. And what's crazy is that
it makes people think it's evil.
Right. I was just going to say that. So and that's and I am a you know, I'm guilty of falling into that conspiracy hole as well.
They want us to all think it's evil, so
but
we understand.
It's ultimately what led me to I'm gonna find out. And I'm going to know what's really going on. So, like, the reason that it's portrayed to be so evil is to keep people at bay. The less the people know, the more and I'm not speaking, this isn't me personally, this is just, you know, the overall view of what they think is the less you know, the more I can do. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Share the Kabbalion real quick with people again, just on camera so they see it. So again, you can get this one free online. Like there's copies free online, and there's people who've made a lot of content about it as well.
It's Hermetic Philosophy. It's the most popular occult work of the 20th century, now in a hardbound edition that evokes the original volume with the new introduction by scholar of mysticism Richard Smoley.
Yep, quite popular, I'm telling you. Like, I've interviewed people, like, of the 50 people I interviewed, a lot of them had personal experience where they said, like, this is very helpful.
And what's crazy is that, like, so really, like, the Christianity that people know today, I call it, like, it's like Christian fundamentalism. Like, that's what it is. It's like the literalists, the people that read the Bible and take it literally instead of esoterically and see it, you know, in its allegorical form as stories that are meant to transform you and teach you, as opposed and it still does, but it's not meant to completely be taken literally. And what's crazy is that when you start to read books like this, which touch on knowledge that's been around for thousands of years prior to the Bible even being written, then you start to see the similarities,
it's funny.
And you start to question. Because I'm guilty of this as well. And then in a second you can say what you're going to say, but I'm guilty of this as well. Like, I was raised in a way where I thought the fucking world started when the Bible started. You know what I'm saying? I thought the world started when the Bible started. And I know that sounds crazy, but I know there's a million other people across the world that feel the same way. They thought the world started when the Bible started because that's like the book of law, and that's what it is. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the Bible. I got 10 of them over there, and I've read every one of them. But what I'm saying is,
he does,
is that it's. Go ahead, because I'm just. It's crazy though. It's because you could start to read all these other things from all these other cultures, all these other practices from around the world, for thousands of years, stretching back far prior to when the Bible was conceived, and it's all bits of the same knowledge that's just put together, you know.
And then you go back and you see Buddha predicted Jesus
coming,
and then you see, in different texts they have similarities. They all say the golden rule in their own way, in different ways, and then you look at where Jesus learned himself the knowledge,
right?
Which he learned literally Hermetic knowledge.
Bro,
he went to
Jesus
Egypt.
Christ was a literal. He was teaching Hermetics. He was teaching the ancient mystery Egyptian schools of thought.
Yeah, and it's amazing, right? It's like, who would have thought? It's like, no, because the churches don't go that deep. They just look at the surface level.
Right.
Which is sad, because it's like even Thomas Aquinas, which is not like super deep, because he's like a philosopher after, all these documents. Thomas Aquinas like basically created these huge form documents, which I bet barely anyone today can read and understand or begin to comprehend, but the church basically took these ideas and ran with them, because he's a doctor and like he knew, he was very intelligent, like he was taking a lot of ideas from Aristotle and others, and he wrote these huge texts proving the existence of God and all sorts of things, and it's really complex. But like I didn't learn about that. Like I went to Catholic school too, and by the way, like the funny thing is I was never religious either, and I bet most people who go to Catholic school or whatever, they don't end up actually like truly religious or truly devoted, because they don't have a personal connection to it.
Right.
And maybe you do have a personal connection to it. Okay, great. But here allows you to further your connection in a way that, again, like just what we talked about, is what founded it in the first place. Like this is what created these religions.
Somebody said CCD. Yep.
Yeah, CCD. Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly.
So
what
CCD was So
my
that's
mom
for
was
like
a
public.
teacher.
Yeah, that's like public school that goes to Catholic school because they want their kids to. Public school that goes to like after school stuff for Catholic. Yeah.
My mom was a teacher, so like she fell for it too. But like the whole reason why she was a teacher was because she didn't want to like indoctrinate people. She just wanted to like be a teacher, to share.
Right.
But I still didn't like learn anything. Like I don't remember learning anything from that, even though I took it for years. It's like the same thing with school. It's like, do you guys think about your schooling? Because I learned math. I learned so many useless things that I'm not using on a day-to-day basis. Like nearly everything I had to learn,
all of school is part of indoctrination.
It has to be. It's based on the Prussian schooling system. Look up Taylor Gatto.
You said Andrew Tate.
I didn't say Andrew Tate. Okay, I didn't.
So wait a second, because this fucking dude that's been in my life for the last 3 days that somebody had to kick out, he kept coming in, and the first like 2 nights, the first night he was all right. He kept talking about Islam, and he was all right. And then he kind of stopped. And then the second night, he started pushing it more. And then the third night, he was in there literally trying to convert everyone in my life to fucking Islam, pushing the Quran heavy, talking about how Andrew Tate and Adin Ross just converted, so everybody should convert. I was like, first of all, Andrew Tate's okay in my book, but if Adin Ross converted to Islam, he's the last person I'm going to take a cue from, ever.
That's funny. Yeah, I mean, people follow celebrities, right? Like, they put them on a pedestal, and that stems from some sense of many different psychological conditions, which, again, like, occult philosophy teaches you, like, your own brain and how it works, and that's why it's connected to psychology and stuff, and you start to really see things for yourself. You don't need to be a doctor. You don't need to be, in any position to learn this stuff. It's not really hard to understand, like, especially if you start with the Kabbalion. It's really simple, and then you move your way up from there. The Tao Te Ching, very simple. Just start reading things that you never started reading before. I mean, it might... That's what got me started, right? We just started doing things we never expected to do.
And don't be afraid to either. Like, I've told you guys a million times, like, I've even read the Bible, and let me tell you, I gotta get rid of this. I used to be so afraid, like, thinking that if I even touched it, I was going to hell forever. Like, if I even like came within like 10 feet of that book and was associated with it in any way, I was going straight to hell, and I just fucked myself for life. And that's just, like, to think like that, I'm condemning myself by thinking that way.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm condemning myself by thinking that way. And that's what my indoctrination taught me to do. Like, and then all the things that I've done throughout my life, and a lot of people here know my, a little bit about my backstory. I made choices that weren't so good throughout my life, and did things that were destructive to my body and destructive to my mental health. And then for so long after those decisions, condemned myself as a person, that I was never going to be worth anything more than that, because I've already done the shit that gets you fucking sent to hell. You know what I mean? I never fucking murdered anybody or anything like that, but like, you know, I was addicted to drugs for a long time. I fornicated before marriage. Like, if you have sex before marriage, I'm sure every freaking person in this life has had sex before marriage. And I was taught to believe that if you did that, it's like a mortal sin and you're going to hell. You know what I mean? I have you know, homosexual friends that I know are not going to hell. I know that they're great fucking people. And I didn't agree with these things and these rules that basically, like, mentally sent you in this place to condemn yourself before you even went before, you know, any type of spiritual ruler or judge. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, like I said, we all have these different experiences, but yours is definitely quite a bit, and that gives you a lot of, you know, leeway to understand other people's mentalities and why they do what they do.
And also, when I started working in rehabs and was in, you know, like groups like Alcoholics Anonymous, like I was you know, not forced because I didn't have to be there, but I wanted to be there to try and better myself. And in that environment, I was surrounded by people from all different types of spiritual practices and faiths, and, you know, Wiccans and Jews and all kinds of shit, that, like, these people that I was taught to stay far, far away from as a Catholic, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm like, these people are good people. Right. They're not going to go out and kill nobody. And I was taught to basically, I thought that they were Satan incarnate, you know what I mean?
It's the same thing with, like, you know, again, governments. Like, they're just people. That's it. Like, all I'm saying to people is they're just people. And that's everybody. They're just people. It's like, all of a sudden, the reason why people say, oh, there's so much division, and yet they're probably partaking in one themselves, is because they believe that people are not just people. Right. It's like, no, everybody's just people living different experiences, going through different things. And so I can't really blame someone. Like, someone could do something wrong. Am I going to blame the person, or am I going to blame the action and why he did what he did, and learn as to what he did, his belief system? Right. Because, like, I wouldn't blame, or I wouldn't, like, it may sound controversial, but I can't say someone is truly evil, because I have faith that they are not, knowing that they got to where they are due to many reasons. Like, things don't just happen, like, for no reason. Things happen due to certain things.
Circumstances.
Even if you think, you know, the universe happened randomly and there were these random molecules that just came in and created a Big Bang.
It's cause and effect.
It's still cause and effect. Yeah.
That's another law.
Right. Law of cause and effect. It's just another way of saying
correspondence and cause.
So many different ways of saying it. It's unreal.
Law of correspondence.
And I'm sure there's many translations that, you know, we had to go through all the years because language keeps changing, but yeah. So we can keep evolving as a human species if we evolve our morality, just like we did in the 1800s. But it's just a matter of getting that out there. I mean, it seems like so perfect because now we have technology to deliver it. Like, back in the 1800s, you had to print something out on parchment. Right. A good disgrace. Like, you lose that parchment, gone. Your book's gone.
So somebody just said, actually one of my moderators said, I think my child's dad is truly close to evil. Why do you say that?
Yeah. Here, do you mind if I go to the bathroom?
Yeah, go ahead. You know where it's at.
Thank you. Here, I'll follow the chat. And actually, I could probably watch it.
You're going to take the chat into the bathroom with you?
Why not?
Close. I'm telling them all to close their eyes. So, yeah, I mean, if you guys ever wanted to start, the best place to start would be with books like The Kabbalion. And again, that's like the bare bones of, like, occultism. Everybody knows, you know, Aleister Crowley, and everybody knows, and this ties into, again, like anybody who we look at as being in a position of power. Hold on, I want to see what you said. He's atheist and doesn't believe anything that is God's world. Well, you know what's crazy is that atheists, in most cases, are closer to God, or the all. I call it the all, because, see, I had a really strange upbringing in the Catholic Church, and it was so heavy and so cemented into my brain that, like, I'm 33, and I can honestly say that even until I was like 25, I legitimately thought there was like an invisible sky daddy flying around in the clouds. And like that's the image that the church had impressed upon me God was. So I have a really, and I get down with people that call it God, because, at the end of the day, it's whatever you want to call it. But I call it the awe. I just believe that there's like this omnipresent energy that is all-knowing, all-seeing, and I call it the awe. And I believe that we're all part of the awe. And really, there's a chapter in this book, and there's 7 Hermetic principles, and that's what this book covers. It covers the 7 Hermetic principles, the bare bones of Hermetic philosophy. And one of those 7 Hermetic principles is all in all, and all in all. So basically what it means is that God, or the all, is in every single one of us, even the most evil of persons. God is in that person. It's just that that person chose to act out of moral character as opposed to act in sync with the all. So the all is in all, and we're actually in the all. As above, so below. But yeah. Yeah, Kiki, that book's the shit. And if you want to even go further than that, the next book I would get after the Kabbalion, and you get like the 7 Hermetic principles down and understand them, I would then move on to the Corpus Hermeticum, which is the teachings of Hermes Trismegistus, which is all the ancient Egyptian mystical stuff. Everything is like what you want out of it and your actions. Yin yang, my thoughts. Yep, absolutely. Yin and yang. So if you guys go through my videos a little bit, I have a really good Alan Watts video, little lecture that he did on the yin and yang, and and why I love that symbol so much is because, again, how I was brought up was to think that there was this constant battle between light and dark, and that there was like supposed to be this never-ending violent tension between light and dark. And that's not to say that, like, there isn't a spiritual hardship or what. Wouldn't even know how to describe that. It's not to say that there isn't, an opposition, which is evil, but at the same time, it's to say that how he broke it down was that if you stop looking at life as a grim contest and you start looking at it more of as a dance, then that's exactly what it becomes. Then everything becomes balanced and flows in harmony with each other instead of being this constant fucking violent battle. Pillars of Creation, what's your thoughts? What are your thoughts on Pillars of Creation?
I don't know everything about occultism.
Yeah, neither do I. I mean, we're still learning.
Mark Passio, like I said, I met him in person. The guy's great. He knows this stuff like by a T, because this is his expertise. Me personally, like, that's why I brought my book, so I can show you, like, aside from the abolition focus, and I like looking at occultism. I think it's great. I'm still learning all the time.
She said it's NASA.
NASA.
My uncle works for NASA.
But I made these books. So this one is my slavery one. So slavery.
So these are his books. So you can get them on Amazon, right?
This one is very thin. It's meant for like teachers and students. Like, it's in question and answer format.
Okay.
And it goes over like, what is a right? What is your property? What is not your property? What is ownership? Like, really, really simple, right? And then that more than half of it is just quotes. So the back has like a little introduction as well. And yeah, I include the yin yang in that. My Radical Honesty book, talking about the importance of being honest and defending that case very strongly. And this is like one of my main works, which is Sapientia Naturae, which is the wisdom of nature. And I have a book that I just released. I don't have it in person yet, but it's the guidebook to this one, and it's a little bigger. But it's basically all questions. Remember I told you I like Socrates? So Socrates said that quote where, let the curriculum be the questions. So I developed my own curriculum based on this. And so I prove the point, like you were saying, we have a connection to the all and all that. Yeah, I talk about nature. Nature is the answer. And so This is my own philosophy, essentially, and I encourage people to think for themselves on every matter. I created it out of my own heart of researching everything else,
right,
and my own research into the world around me. I just don't impose that on others and call it law. So, and nor does this knowledge, because you can't, and you can use it for power if you want to, but hopefully you use it to empower others instead of for your own ego, because that's what you were talking about. Satanism and, well, atheism at least. Sorry.
Yeah.
Statheism is also another form of statheism, where you're an atheist and a statist at the same time. Because, you never know. Because, like, some people may say, oh, well, God is not real, but we should believe in government. It's
right.
Like, well, you're believing in one religion, but not the other. But yeah, Satanism, which I think you talked about before, is just atheism. Like, that's literally it. You can go to the churchofsatan.org or their main website, and it literally has an FAQ section. It literally says, no, Satanists do not believe in Satan. They are just atheists. It literally says that.
Yeah.
And then the next question, which is the most important one, and the FAQ says, do you think morality is objective or subjective? And they say it's subjective. And this is their, like, core to their philosophy, is the idea that if it makes you happy, if it helps you, then that's it. Like, if it's your instincts, and you want to eat something and you want to kill it, whatever, do it. Do it if it makes you happy. And it's not one that's based in moral principle. It doesn't have any moral principle. It says moral principle is, like, the problem, basically. But they leave out, government, talking about that. There's always dots to connect, and that's where, like, Mark Pasio got out of that church and started teaching about morality, because he realized that's the number one thing they don't want people to think. They want people to think it's all subjective. So people can just, hurt others, enslave others with no repercussion. It's like no one's going to stop them, and people can build governments and make their own systems of law, but there's no law higher. Yeah. It's like Frederick Douglass. There's a quote from one of my slavery books. This one, it has this one. I want to read this one quote, if you don't mind, because this one is the most powerful quote, and you'll find it online, but they don't read the whole quote. They leave out they only talk about a certain part of the quote. Okay, so many of you probably heard of Frederick Douglass. Here is Frederick Douglass. Well, that's some from him. These quotes are, like, amazing. Frederick Douglass. Well, this one too. It is then the first business of the enslaver of men to blunt, deaden, and destroy the central principle of human responsibility. Conscience is to the individual soul and to society what the law of gravitation is to the universe. It holds society together. It is the basis of all trust and confidence. It's the pillar of all moral rectitude. Without it, suspicion would take place of trust. Vice would be more than a match for virtue. Men would prey upon each other like the wild beasts of the desert, and earth would become like a hell. So Satanists say, well, you should just embrace that. Like, basically, survival of the fittest, social Darwinism, embrace that. And don't think that there's, like, a moral higher goal to achieve as human beings to evolve. You should just basically accept your animal instinctual base level. That's basically what Satanism is in a nutshell. And so it's not that it's evil. It's not that your instincts are bad. It's saying that you should only follow your instincts, or that there's nothing higher, like a moral code to follow. Josiah Warren, this stuff is amazing. There's another one. I had to find it. But I picked all these quotes. I mean, I went through so many different texts to find these, but it wasn't hard because the abolitionists, they had so much writing. Right. And I'm not taking their words out of context. So all those historians out there, you're ignoring the fact that the abolitionists were not trying to end, they were trying to end other forms of slavery, not just chattel slavery. So if anyone's a historian out there, I hold you accountable to reread William Lloyd Garrison or The Liberator newspaper.
So this girl's name is Yermaine Beach. She said, it's understanding that we all have those instincts and can choose to act upon them or not.
Right, exactly. And we control our instincts through our, intuition, our conscience. And the problem is people are like, well, we don't know what the conscience is. And because they don't really know what it is or can't describe it, they therefore just throw it out. They don't think it exists. And they think, oh, well, because some people are going to be psychopathic, we should just embrace that. It's like, no. Just because some people do evil does not mean we should just let that happen.
Right.
But People make justifications for evil in many different ways. In some ways they realize they do it unintentionally, in other ways they don't. Oh yeah, this is the one. To make a contented slave, you must make a thoughtless one. It is necessary to darken his moral and mental vision, and as far as possible to annihilate his power of reason. He must be able to detect no inconsistencies in slavery. Here's where he debunks taxation, a former slave himself. The man that takes his earnings must be able to convince him that he has the perfect right to do so. It must not depend upon mere force. The slave must know no higher law than his master's will. The whole relationship must not only demonstrate to his mind its necessity, but its absolute rightfulness.
And what do most people in this country know? Nothing higher than the law.
Yeah. The law is morality. It's like, as long as you don't break the law, as long as it's not illegal. It's like, okay, well, it's illegal to collect rainwater in Pennsylvania, so I guess I can't go outside right now. Oh, geez, man, I'm accidentally, there's a bucket outside of my house. I accidentally left it there. Oh, shoot, I'm collecting rainwater, man.
And that's when I think of this, like, whole, circling back to the sovereign mentality really started blowing up a lot during COVID, especially with that whole, But
it's such a good psyop. Because if you never give people, if people don't realize the real roots to freedom, and they go toward another route that gives them a little bit of freedom, but they still have to ask for permission, or they still are playing by the game's rules, like, you're not going to become more free. I have a whole video dedicated to this. Look up, my video is titled, Why Paperwork and Voting Does Not Achieve Real Freedom. It's like, not even like 15 minutes long. A lot of my videos, I have sometimes segments where it gives you everything you need to know in a certain amount of time.
Your main beach says, whoops, separation of church and state. It's now law, not scripture.
That's a big point, because my friend, the Latter-day Saint guy, he argues for the fact that churches are like good governments, like voluntary governments.
What we were saying before.
And the problem is, Constantine came in power and brought the church into government and like basically merged the two. And he has like a whole like history and everything on his site. It's amazing. Yeah, I'm still learning from him as well. Like, it's interesting because that movement was started around the same time as the abolitionists, and we're both like studying these people, so we're just trying to find out what was going on during that time period. People like to look at the founding fathers, but I like to look at what's after, because these guys did a lot of work. I mean, it wasn't easy waking up millions of people to slavery when everybody saw it as normal and necessary and right. So, just like now, what I'm doing with government, it's like the same exact excuse. Well, if we free the slaves, there's going to be chaos. It's like, yeah, if you free the people, there's going to be chaos. It's like, no, people are not like just going to cause chaos because they want to. Like, there's going to be few people who do, and probably some short-term repercussion because of all this long-term bondage. But over the long term, you're going to have people living as they naturally should, as human beings. And that's all we're doing, is creating the natural world. Like, what we have created for ourselves is an illusion.
Right.
Because everything man creates is an illusion by default. That's what I prove in my philosophy, is talking about the man-made versus the natural.
Yeah. I think that's actually the first Hermetic principle, isn't it? Mentalism? Is that
Mentalism.
The world is mental, everything is an illusion?
Yeah, the all is mind. So when you say the all, it's like encapsulating the idea that everything around us, like this chair, had to be first thought about in somebody's mind before it was put together.
Right.
Now, it may look like a really simple invention to somebody, but like that had to still be thought of, and using the mind that had to be put together.
Right.
And we can't expect humanity to learn its lesson like so quickly, because over time you learn, and that's how you learn everything. And so, we can be saying, "Oh man, I wish this would happen," but that's like back then. Like, people said that all the time. I found abolitionists from like the 10th century, who were like, why can't we end slavery now? And they're like getting mad at people. But then it just took some time,
Yeah.
Like, if enough people to start talking about it, it just gets out there. And it just, time tells all truth.
Yeah.
Slow but steady wins the race. It's actually better than having the whole world talk about it at the same time. Because then more people are grounded in their principle, and they're not doing it for attention or because other people are doing it. So I'm totally cool with the slow but steady progression that's happening with this knowledge.
There's a saying that the Freemasons have, and it's called Ordo ab Chaos.
Yeah, order of chaos.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that one can only come from the other.
Well, they also say in their speeches like, "Oh, well, order, peace, and security," and they say that over and over and over again to sound nice to people. It's like they basically brainwash the public into thinking that government is the source of security and order, and therefore never question its power. Never, like never ever question its authority. Whatever you do, you can change the authority, you can change what's happening with authority, but just don't question the authority to begin with. Like that's the off limits for them. So anarchists are these crazy, chaotic people who wear masks on the streets, who want to burn down everything. It's perfect. It makes people fear freedom. And because they fear freedom, they're never going to be truly free.
Right.
Because they don't understand it. And like, there's real anarchists, and they don't look anything like that. Look up Murray Rothbard. Look up this guy. Like he wears a bow tie. He's like a bald old man with like glasses. He looks like a college professor, because he is. Like, and he's literally... He's one of the founders of a lot of like anarchist thought today. I mean, this like beautiful stuff. That look into his writings. One of his writings is For a New Liberty, or like these guys, like their writings are very intellectual.
Yeah.
But you know, the people who burn things in the streets, who call themselves anarchists, they don't even know how to define it themselves. They just think it means rebel.
Right.
And they see it in the movies and television, so they start using the symbols.
Yeah, they just hop on that train.
Yeah, it's like the complete opposite of what it actually is, which makes it perfect for the controllers. Because the word monarchy comes from mono archon, means one ruler. So anarchon means no rulers. And so it's like you'd have to, it's hard because I don't want to use that term anymore because of how negative they made that term be.
Right.
Which is why I use the word abolitionist, because it has a good reputation, but also because it's a little bit more specific too. Like I call it an action because you're abolishing something. So maybe, I don't know which word will get more popular. Voluntarist, abolitionist. But either way, the knowledge will get out. So natural law, one way or another, will get out there. I don't know what the buzzword will be, but it'll be some buzzword. Probably all together.
It's the same thing with anything like, any different way of thought that threatened the agenda has always immediately been pounced on and had an evil or a dark or a threatening connotation added to it, just to continue to instill that fear in people from,
Fear's huge. So fear is the number one mechanism for control. But think about what comes from fear. Like, if you had to name one psychological condition that comes from fear, what would it be?
That comes from fear?
Yeah.
Dehumanization, or like a psychological concept that I would gain from fear?
Ignorance.
Yeah.
Because, think about it. If you don't want to learn something, or, you are afraid of looking into something...
Forensic therapist said trauma.
So trauma from fear... Yeah. I'd say fear and trauma are kind of the same. But, again, if you're not facing your trauma with love...
Shadow work.
Yeah, then it's then that fear takes over you, and then you remain ignorant. Because to love is to have knowledge, actually. Because love is an opening force, and fear is a contracting force. Love allows you to open yourself up to knowledge, and because you love yourself, you're going to give yourself knowledge or give others knowledge. You wouldn't, if you didn't want to help yourself and you felt like your situation was hopeless, then you don't love yourself.
Right.
And so you're not going to, you want to remain ignorant. You want to stay where you are in a place of stagnation or extinction. And that's where humanity is heading if they do not use what we call the positive natural law expressions.
I think there has been I don't want to call it the Great Awakening, but if you are really, I feel as though over the last several years, more people, for some reason, have been gravitating towards this type of knowledge. And I've seen it, and it's not because I wasn't really headfirst into it myself, and now I'm seeing it because it's when you buy a Mitsubishi Galant and then you drive down the street and you see a ton of them because now you're driving one. It's not like that. It's I've noticed that over the course of the last several years, and maybe it was everybody sitting at home and they just had this ample amount of time to just do nothing but watch documentaries or just do whatever, but I feel as though
Yeah.
there's been a great awakening, so to
It's
speak.
like a double-edged sword, that situation, because it obviously made some things really bad, but then made other things
It's really good, yeah.
So, and you see this with any big change or any big amount of power, you know. But so the thing is, with fears, it leads to ignorance, and ignorance leads to confusion. Confusion leads to control, and control leads to chaos.
Right.
Which is, by the way, like proving that control, which is law, which is, you know, having those systems in place, actually leads to chaos. Now, if it's self-control and control where it should be, like self-ownership, that's freedom, that is order. But for people to connect the idea of freedom and order in today's world, they actually equate freedom to chaos. Because they're afraid of, oh, what about no government? And oh, what about this? It's like, no, you control you.
Right.
So
it's the people. It's almost sick how people want to be submissive. You know what I mean? Like they want to be controlled.
yeah, well, because of their confusion and
Right.
their ignorance and their fear. So again, like these expressions go one to the other. So if we look at the opposite side of that, we go to love, knowledge, and then sovereignty, freedom, order. Again, you need self-control in order for freedom. You need rules in order for no rulers. You need to have rules and a ruler within yourself in order to have no ruler externally.
Right.
So if I break this down now, both directions, love is consciousness. Fear is unconsciousness.
Right.
And knowledge is the acceptance of truth, whereas ignorance is the refusal of truth. And then confusion, you know, would be this ignorance as the result. What's the opposite of confusion is, well, sovereignty and control and
Right.
the other things I mentioned. It goes love, knowledge, sovereignty. Okay, so that's like accepting truth, embracing it, practicing it, acting on it. And then from there, you go to freedom. Freedom is external anarchy. External anarchy, external no ruler. So you can look at sovereignty as internal monarchy. Okay, so there is monarchies in nature.
Yeah.
It's you and you for yourself, because the word again, archon means one ruler. If you rule yourself, then you're an internal monarch. So you're a sovereign. You're an internal monarchy, whereas the world, if it's freedom, is external anarchy. This is just another way to look at it. And then if you were to switch that up and say, well, no, there's internal anarchy, then there's confusion because
Right.
I don't control myself. I don't have a ruler for myself. I have to look externally for my solution.
Yep.
So there's confusion within myself. There's internal anarchy. There would be an external monarchy because I'm giving that power away, and that would be control. So again, positive, like consciousness,
Yep.
acceptance of truth, internal monarchy, external anarchy, and then order, which is like living in full alignment with the truth, or just, you know, embracing the natural state. Like the Tao says, just like literally just living your life, which so many people just can't just live and let live. Like that's literally all the message is to do.
Yeah.
Like leave people alone, let people do their own thing. If somebody's being violated upon, okay, defend them, help them.
Yeah.
But like, you don't need to create a whole system and say everybody must pay taxes and everybody must help for this person. It's like, no. Let people voluntarily choose what they want to do. The only reason why someone creates a system like that is for their own benefit, so they can have a paycheck, so they can have power, so they can get away with things that other people can't.
Yeah, and this goes hand in hand with stuff I talk about all the time. Is, you know, somebody just said, yes, we are all gods, and somebody else said
Equally, see, the thing is, though, there's an irony in that. By saying we're all gods, you're equally saying there are no gods, because it makes it null and void. Like, if everyone's a god, then there is no God, by definition, because we're all God. You understand? So, like, it's funny when people say, oh, everything is a simulation. Well, if everything is a simulation, then it's equally not a simulation, because you just said everything's a simulation. It's kind of funny how that works psychologically, but I'm not going to go into detail, but maybe some of you guys will get the point.
right.
It's like a contradiction.
But that's what we
But I get the point.
That's what we talk about. That's what we talk about in Rosicrucianism a lot too. Is the fact that like Jesus wasn't like, people are so indoctrinated into thinking that like a person like that was the only person that could ever do what he did, when in reality we all have the ability to be that.
Yeah.
And that the Christ is within everyone, so to speak, if that's how you follow it, but the Christ is within everyone, and we're indoctrinated into thinking that if we ever sought to go and be that way, that we'd actually be sinning, because we'd be, going back to the old story of Lucifer, thinking that we could be God. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's in my book. I make that distinction. Like, you can't be nature. Like, you are part of nature.
Right.
That's the way I word it. But I don't say that you are nature itself, because if you were, then you can manipulate the laws. You can make new laws in existence. Like, you can take out gravity, but you don't have that power. So clearly, there's a power that's higher than you that you are subject to, whether you like it or not. Like, I can choose to not participate in this government, and that's why it's not natural, even though everybody thinks it is. But when it comes to gravity or these other forces, you can't escape that, no matter what you do. Unless you go to space, I guess, which is like, I don't know, I've never been there. So, but still, those have laws too. And like, you can't change those laws. Those are not man-made. Anything man-made is just not permanent. It's just not like universal. It's not objective. It's not... That's why we think morality is subjective, because we're looking at things through human perception. So there is a place for subjectivity. It's just understanding that although we may have subjective feelings and emotions and things like that, we have an objective reality outside of us that we can understand. If we think that we can't understand what's around us, then there's no point of like going for any goal or purpose or trying to achieve anything. Because everything's just random and always, it's like, then why end slavery? It's like, the whole point was because it was immoral and because it helps society, and clearly if it helps them, that means there's a goal, there's something that we need to achieve within humanity.
And I want to touch on something you said a minute ago that I forgot to touch on, that if anybody's ever watched any of my videos, it's a reoccurring theme in a lot of them, is I say we've been so, and this is another reason why we've become so lost, is because everyone's so focused on what they've been taught, which is to seek externally for answers, when everything, you already possess it all. So.
Well, again, it's like, so this goes back to the principle of polarity in the Kabbalion, right? So the principle of polarity is like, everything has poles and everything has its dual opposites. So like, for us to say, well, everything is internal, it's also, again, equally to say, like, there's everything external, because like, we came from the external, and now we are the internal, and then like, we're part of the external, so we can't exclude it. So it's why you can't get stuck in one world.
You can't get stuck, but when people are taught to, so to clarify, when people are taught...
We're going deep right now.
Yeah, and we always do. But to make it more understandable is like that the whole external thing, it's not to say that we're like, excluding the fact that it's a combination of both internal and external, but people are taught, I think, and this is just my personal experience also, that it's all external. Like you're constantly, like, you're not really a part of God. You're constantly looking for the all to just hand you the answers or kind of guide you through life, when the whole goal, I think, is to become one with it and move through life in communion. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get you, man. It's a practice. I say life is a practice. It's a big scientific experiment, and you're part of that experiment. Unfortunately, there's human people who are experimenting upon you as well, to some extent.
Yeah.
But you're also part of life's experiment, and that's the thing. They want to be God. They want to be the person that looks like they're the natural authority. Yeah. I call it natural authority. Like, instead of morality really is just natural authority. Like, where do you place your trust in, like, what you think should happen in this world? Are you going to trust nature and the knowledge that you gain, or are you going to trust some person and their opinion and what they think should be done? It's like, again, just because someone thinks something does not make it true. Just because a majority says it doesn't make it true.
And that's not to say that I haven't been around some really wise men and women,
but they point you there,
and I'm able to. The biggest part about that is to take what they say with a grain of salt and be able to discern the difference from, wisdom and personal experience or opinion or personal perception, and be able to just kind of apply that to what I'm doing in my own life and my own experience. You know what I mean?
That's great, man.
Because people, I think, so often look to other people for their answers. Like, they'll go to a priest and think that priest is going to be able to shed all their light on what they need, you know, to
Yeah. And they might, but like let's put ourselves in the position of a priest, like, and again, because they're just a human being, but they have maybe, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Say they have some good experiences.
Right.
Let's say you're a doctor or a teacher.
Right.
How are you going to teach someone? Are you going to teach them by saying, this is what you need to know, and I know what is happening in your life? Like, no, you're not that person.
Right.
So the best way to heal someone is the same way you help someone through trauma or whatever. It's like they have to do an individual approach one way or another. It's like, yeah, they either the practitioner or the priest has to ask a lot of questions and really get clear. But the whole point of them asking questions is for you to also understand your own condition, for you to come to your own realizations. It's not necessarily for them. They are just like a guide, basically, part of the process. Now, if we treated everybody like that in this world, we wouldn't have laws and governments that are dictating how people should live, because they're not teaching anybody anything. They're not giving people a foundational understanding as to why something is wrong. People are just not doing something because they're told not to, and they're not doing it because they're fearing not doing it.
Right.
So it's like, you know, not following their orders. It's like, it's crazy how much they twisted just the natural law of cause and effect, of karma.
Right.
And so people now just think karma doesn't exist, because they take the place of karma. They take the place of God. They want to rule over people. And when I say they, I mean us, like literally everyday people who are just saying, well, we need these people in power, we need this, or maybe I should be in power because I think these people are bad. It's like, no one deserves to be in power.
Right.
Sorry, I know that may be controversial for some people, but the whole idea of power, it's like, it's knowledge. Do you want knowledge to be hidden for a few or for everybody? Do you want to help people with violence, or do you want to help them voluntarily? Because then if you wanted to help people with knowledge and voluntarily, you do so like we're doing now.
Right. So am I correct in thinking that the knowledge is to basically just empower yourself to a point where you know how to conduct yourself properly throughout your life and help others do the same, not empower yourself to place yourself in a position of power over other people? And that's apparently what's happened. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but again, like, you know, just because somebody might want to doesn't make it a reality, because there needs to be millions or masses of people saying, yeah, that's legitimate. Right. So you're right. It is about changing the belief systems of people. And, you know, it's all internal, yes. Because, you know, again, the principle of correspondence, as above, so below. You can look at that as internal and external as well. What you put in your body is what's going to end up showing on your appearance over time. You know, it's like you're going to realize it when you're older, what you've done in your former years. You know, when you look at health, like, you find out, looking at health, that people's childhood is like the most important time. I mean, obviously, right? Like, it's their founding
developmental
years. Yeah, but like, you find out, like, their whole life is like determined from like their beginning
what
stage.
happens in absolutely.
Yeah, which is great. And it's not to say that you have no control over it, because that's the last thing we want to tell people, is to say you have no control. You absolutely have control. It's your decision. You know, you can turn the tables at any moment if you choose to. That's how powerful the will is. That's how powerful care is, the generative principle. That's the principle that Mark Passio added to the Kabbalion, the principle of care. Because he calls it the binding principle that says it makes you, like, do, it makes you act. You know, the word care is, like, generative means to create.
Right.
So you're creating into the world. And so he considers that like the lost principle in Freemasonry. And again, like, he's not, when I say he considers it, he has personal experience as well. Like, when they hide knowledge, when they do these things, the trivium, I really suggest you look into trivium. We'll make sure that you check that out. I have that book. I think I showed you the one time, the trivium book, but it's really cool. So it gives people, like, if you are new to philosophy, it goes over like every single philosophy ever, and then teaches you how to think. It's like, what more could you ask for? And it teaches you symbols. It teaches you how words are formed. All of it, all in one. And then the quadrivium is an extension to the trivium. You know, tri means 3, quad 4, and it's basically going over more like complicated stuff from there. So, like, I don't know, astrotheology and all that stuff. So it's definitely, like, if you wanted to start the Kabbalion and the trivium, are definitely great places to start. But that's not my area of expertise. Mark Passio, I think, is the best person to research for that topic and expertise. It's just something to be aware of, because it can help many people.
Yeah, Heather, this is the friend that you didn't get to see the other night.
What's up, Heather? And thank you. I saw some people linking my natural law teacher in the chat. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Because that's my TikTok name. But thank you. Thanks for you do that. And you'll see on my bio.
I told you they would.
Yeah, it's nice of them to do that. But I have my links on there too. I added today. I had my tap link on there, so that has all my links. Because like I'm on every platform, pretty much.
Other than TikTok.
Yeah, other than TikTok, because, dude, it's like I have to clip it individually for TikTok, and I do once in a while. I'll post on TikTok. I'll probably post more. You guys are. Now I'm getting involved with you. I'll post more.
Yeah.
But it stinks. You need to have 1,000 followers to go live. That's crazy. But I mean, it's probably their safety measure. Again, voluntary. I can complain, but it's not like not like TikTok's at my door ready to court. Maybe the CCP is coming in. They're like, you in there? Chinese. Hey, we love the CCP, right, Dominic?
We love the Chinese, man.
Yeah, we love
TikTok.
Hey, if you give us a platform to share knowledge, nothing wrong with that. Honestly.
Yeah. Yo, try and get him to 1,000 so that he can go live from his.
Okay, man. No, that's
his spot.
That's a lot. That's too much.
Too much. It's nothing.
I'm just saying that, oh, it's nothing. Look at him. He's got an ego. Okay, maybe I do want the 1,000 just so I can.
They said I'm sure you'll be at 1,000 now.
Oh my goodness. I don't know if how would I even be that close? I'm not gonna check, but we'll see. I'll check later.
Just people sharing your shit everywhere.
The videos are important. The ugly truth about politics. One of my people love that documentary.
And it's not to cut you up, but she said it's what TikTok does, and that's legit. Like, because I feel like since we're talking about it in here now, the algorithm's just gonna start shooting your shit everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe.
But go ahead, what were you saying?
So if we just keep saying my name over and over again, that's how it works?
Yeah, like tap the live, share the live, follow, hit that follow button. You know how all them people fucking, that's what they do in their lives the whole time. Share the live, tap the screen. Hit the follow button.
Goodness gracious. You know the crazy thing in my videos, I never ask people to do anything. I don't even ask them to give me money.
Yeah.
I have no ways of, I can totally gain money. I choose not to. So, it is what it is. I'm not looking for the moral high ground. I think it's.
She said, "Give us a few minutes. We got you, fam."
Oh my goodness! Thank you. Who was that? Heather?
Yeah.
Goodness. I'll follow you too then if you're gonna do that. All right, I'm following Heather now.
Yeah, they're all cool people.
Now I follow 2 people. Yeah, I follow 2 people on TikTok. I'm serious. Like I literally follow you now, and
yeah, don't be that guy that gets like 1 million followers and only follows like 1 or 2 people.
Okay. I promise. If you get me to 1,000, I'll go through the whole list.
If that's the case, then normally when you hit those pages and there's like somebody's got like 1 million followers and they're following 2 people, there's bound to be a twerking video somewhere in their feed. They're shaking their ass doing something. That's just how it is.
Yeah. Yep. It's funny. Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
Yeah, my video channel is the main place to find me, though. If people want to share my videos, that's what I put most of my work into, and then the newspaper project will be involved. People, if they follow my video channels, they'll get updates on everything, and ways for you to get involved, because I'm, like, everything I'm making, like, next is all collaborative, because it makes more of an impact. When I did my summit, like, I had thousands of people join just because everybody was reposting everything everywhere.
So what is a summit?
It's called the End of Slavery Summit.
Yeah, but like what is
endofslavery.org.
So it's just a website? Like what is a summit? You know what I'm saying?
Summit's like a big conference with a bunch of speakers.
Okay.
Yeah, and I hosted an online event where like there were 16 days of like 3 speakers each day and tons of resources and extra videos, and it's like basically an all-in-one package.
Yeah.
Like if somebody wants to learn like everything that I talked about or we talked about, like this gives them everything. And like maybe they want to learn about health or spirituality or any one topic. There's like a topics catalog. It's all free. Like literally everything I do is totally for free. And usually summits people pay for. Like after it's done, you get like all this. No, I did it all for free, but. I made shirts and stuff like that obviously I have to sell to make money off of, but I don't do it for the money. I do it to share the word. Yeah. So it's like I make the books not to make money, but to share information because I like books. Like I think books are a great way to share information. Mm-hmm. So that's why I do it. But yeah, so if we talk about Andrew Tate, will the algorithm go higher? Probably, right? Even though he's censored, he probably gets ranked high.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm starting to think it's all a fucking game.
Yeah, I don't know.
His censorship is all just a fucking act to put his name out there even more.
Yeah, yep.
People were dissecting the video where I forget where he was when the fucking police came in and raided him and arrested him.
I saw all that, yeah.
But they were dissecting the video and saying that the uniforms of the police officers didn't match the uniforms of that fucking city's police department. So that it wasn't real police officers. It was just people dressed up like cops, like just putting on a show.
Wow.
Because then when they brought him out in cuffs, he only said one thing when he was getting into the car. He was like, "The Matrix has attacked me."
Perfect.
But they won't succeed.
That's the perfect thing to say to just blow up the internet. Like,
yeah, I know.
I mean, it's like they had it really he had it perfectly made just to blow up on the internet, you know? Like, people are going through relationship problems. They have, like, problems with, like, men are like men. Women are... There's no women who are, like, really respectful. They're all just, like, want certain things. And it appealed to what men actually want.
Yeah.
And it actually, like, worked. Which is how, like, they create psyops and how they create, you know, counter-opposition and stuff in the first place. I'm not saying that he is. I'm just saying that even if he isn't, the people in power can still use to their agenda's benefit. Yeah. And it also counts as a distraction for other knowledge, like the stuff we're sharing.
Yeah.
Where it's like anything else just to keep people distracted from this.
Right.
Because they know this is the key. Like, they literally consider the occult knowledge the key that unlocks all the doors.
Yep.
The master key. So
absolutely.
It's like, if that's that big and that powerful, then no matter what other people say is, like, important, they're just, like, symptoms.
Yeah. So... Speaking of psyops,
oh jeez,
that's like
are you?
It's like the second time you. I don't know. If I am, I don't even know. The government's got me under some crazy mind control.
How do you not know? If you don't know yourself, then you don't control yourself. What's going on, Dom?
I don't know, man. I don't know, but like
you gotta know. You better know.
So speaking of psyops, though, do you think that there's ever been any cases of like? I mean, because we could talk about psyops all the way down to, like, Charlie Manson being a fucking psyop, like a government psyop, you know what I mean?
There was another ex-Satanist that left the Church of Satan. His name was Nicholas Schreck. Mm-hmm. He has, like, something called the Manson Files, and, like, he talks about it in, like, every interview, so he probably knows everything about that.
Yeah.
He left Satanism and became, like, a Buddhist teacher, and now he's, like, a musician. Also extremely intelligent. Like, these people, they're so intelligent. Like, but nobody knows who they are, and it's, like, insane. It's because, like, most of the people, like we talked about, they have the knowledge, or they're so old. Like, a lot of the people in these secret societies, they're so old, they don't even know how to use technology or how to share the information.
Right.
So it probably helps to have younger people out there like us sharing it. But also, many of them either don't want to share it, or they feel like the world's never going to listen, and all the other things we talked about. But not an excuse in my book. Like, no excuse for not embracing the truth. Truth doesn't care about people's feelings. Truth is like, it's brutal. It will throw you through a stinking...
It is. And that's... That's the thing, is that people... where did I see it the other day? It was a perfect quote, and it's people don't want to hear the truth because they'd rather find comfort in the lie, or some shit like that.
Well, I mean,
again, people get mad, people get angry at the truth because it makes them uncomfortable, because they'd rather be comfortable in the lies. There's some shit like that.
Again, I always use slavery from the 1800s, although it's a touchy subject maybe for some people. I mean, I hope not, because, like, we did good. Like, I'm thinking humanity did amazing things in the 1800s of ending slavery. That's fantastic. So for me to bring that back as an analogy is not a bad thing. But if I bring it back as an analogy, you can be a slave on the plantation, comfort, with everything provided to you. You have defense, you have food, you have shelter. Everything's provided for you. As long as you do what the master tells you to do, life will be fine. Mm-hmm. But if you don't, then life will not be fine. So you either have to enjoy your comfort, and maybe the slave will be nicer to you, and then you will enjoy your slavery more, and you will want to be a slave. That's exactly why limited government is more dangerous than overt government. Because overt government, you see it as tyranny. Limited government, you're not going to see it as tyranny because you're comfortable with it until it turns into tyranny again, which it's inevitably going to do so, unless you understand the belief system that I was talking about for probably the past 2 hours, using a bunch of different examples. But again, if anyone's new to this, the End of Slavery Summit puts it all into perspective, or my video, The Ugly Truth About Politics.
Yeah.
I also have another video called Political Slavery, because some of the abolitionists literally titled it its own form of slavery. Lysander Spooner in his document called No Treason. Look up No Treason, you'll get it right away. Such an amazing document. It proves from a legal and like intellectual, moral standpoint that you never gave consent to the government. Talked about that before. But that's the document that proves it. And it has like 4 parts to it. It's very easy to read, even though it's from the 1800s. You know, at least it's in English. At least we don't have to translate it 100 times like these other, you know, hermetic stuff that comes back way further. Who knows, like, how much things have been changed, you know?
Right.
That's the only thing I guess you have to be like, maybe. But yeah, that's why I look at the near history, and also it's like history that worked, and it's like very interesting. But I'm an abolitionist. Are you an abolitionist? After talking about this?
Yeah, I would consider myself an abolitionist. I mean, listen, man, I started really going down this road just in the occult direction about a year and a half ago. And, you know, well, again, I've been attracted to it my whole life, but always feared it because of what I was taught. And then about a year and a half ago, when I was really going through the darkest time of my life, it's kind of what I turned to kind of keep me grounded through that dark time. You know what I mean? And it's the only thing that worked. And then through that, through really diving into that, no, you're good. But through really diving into that was where all of these other things started to come to light, and I realized how out of control of my own life I really was. You know what I mean?
Same here. Like, dude, I went through, like, it wasn't easy for me either, just because I didn't go through all the experiences that you did. Right. Because if you go through a lifelong indoctrination through the schooling system and the church, which I also was part of, it's like to come to realize any of it. And also, I was an avid Trump supporter in 2016, like super conservative, owned all the stuff, the merch. My dad even claims to work for him. Like, I knew like everything. I could defend every argument from him, and I was like, the left is evil. And then I started to understand the whole system is not. It's not what it is. It doesn't matter who you put in office. It could be the best person in the world, and it doesn't matter.
They're all eating dinner at the same table with each other at the end of the night. They're all fucking did you see what we did to them today? You see how riled up we got them? Like, it's all a big party at the end of the day. They're all hanging out with each other.
Yeah, but even if, you know, regardless of the context of them, again, it's still us. Like, it's still we the people who give them the power, which, like, even says so in the Constitution and stuff. So it's, like, contradictive. But, what was I going to say about my experience? And well, yeah, it was crazy. But I was going to say, you could have done drugs. Like, you could have continued doing drugs. You could have done something bad. You could have You could have gone to a new religion. You could have become a politician to get your insecurities and take it out on others. You could have. There were so many other routes you took, but you chose instead to study the knowledge, which is by far, if I'm going to give you like the best ego gratification ever. Like, as long as you understand your own ego, I can't control that for you. That's the biggest thing, is you delved into the knowledge. Like, if there's anything good for self-help...
Somebody said Biden's a psyop.
then you're going... It's like, well, yeah, one person's a psyop, not the millions of people that follow him to give him power. That makes a lot of sense. So one person... Listen, if one person is able to deceive the masses, it's not that the one person is the problem. It's that the masses are so ignorant and so able to be deceived that one person can do such a thing. It's like, imagine how kind of dumb it is to think like one person is the problem for anything in this world. It's like, no. It's like, even if someone could do really bad things, but if others do not prevent it, or others do not stop it, or others do not see it as evil, like that's the determiner of if evil grows. Evil cannot grow in a world where people generally see certain things as wrong. Like no one's going to even try slavery nowadays, chattel slavery. It's not even going to be attempted. Like I haven't met a single person who even tried it. Now there's other forms of modern slavery, sure, and mostly done by people in power, but like it's literally like there's no slave masters anymore, like on farms. Like even though farm life is still tough, by the way, farmers are still having it tough no matter what. No matter what, farmers always suffer no matter what the circumstances, which is why we have technology. Hopefully technology can help out with that. But like even them too are getting like hit by the government really hard. Bill Gates is buying out all the farmland. The government is attacking Amish like farms. It's crazy.
I'm getting told.
Here in Pennsylvania, there's the Amish farm that distributes raw animal products across the nation because it's illegal in certain states to drink raw milk.
Yeah.
It's like healing people. I have friends in Illinois who are like ordering from this farm in Pennsylvania. It's like.
Well, I told you the other day I saw
over
that
30 years
farms are getting raided by the feds just for selling raw milk.
It's a
people
food.
Are getting arrested. I know.
It's healing people. It's been around for thousands of years. It's crazy. We were bringing up psychology experiments. We were bringing up books and like the important concepts within these books that religions will not teach you, but they're the root to all religion.
Yeah.
Like, this is very, very important stuff.
Basically, what religion is following.
Yeah. Animism and deism and Taoism and all this stuff.
And I like to always go back to how I started in like the conspiracy part of it all and seeing like the symbols throughout like Washington DC, and you fall into that hole with all these other people throughout the nation that the occult is bad and that's what they're doing to but you're blindly following it already. So instead of blindly following it, try to understand that it's not the knowledge that's evil, it's what's being done with the knowledge that's evil. Mm-hmm. So obtain that knowledge for yourself and use it to empower yourself.
Right. Knowledge is power. Power could be used for good or evil. It's essentially what he just said. Like,
right. So going back to like, and I broke it down for everybody in the live the other night where people were like, well, the Illuminati and the Freemasons and they do this and they do that. And I'm like, no, it's not the knowledge that they have that's evil. Don't be afraid of the knowledge that they have. It's what is happening. It's what men do with the knowledge. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, and again, that's why knowledge is kept hidden from people. That's why it's called occult. Occult means occultist, which means hidden.
Right.
And if it's kept hidden from certain people, then other people have that knowledge. They have the power for themselves. They can keep that away from others, and therefore keep their power away from the others. Okay, now this obviously is deeper than what we see in the surface, where we see presidents and elections and politicians, because these are usually we refer to as the puppets or the people put on the stage. There's people behind the scenes that, like Edward Bernays, he's known as like the father of all propaganda. Mm-hmm. He invented a lot of the systems on social media to get people hardwired to certain things. Okay, so this is an example of a social engineer, you may call them, a dark occultist, somebody who understands how the mind works, how the world operates, in order to manipulate time, reality, anything in between. So once you learn the laws of the universe through these texts, essentially, or these principles, they'd help empower you in your own life. But, I talked about before, my background is not much in the occult. Although we have some understanding of it, we encourage people to learn about it and don't be afraid of it because it's everywhere, as you mentioned. But, my background is I call myself an abolitionist, and I'm here to end slavery, and that starts in the mind. So I have to bring up philosophy and moral values and mentalism and all this stuff, because the only way you become free is by freeing yourself. You can't vote a new politician in, you can't create a new law. All that is useless, completely useless, and actually counterintuitive. And I proved within the last 2 hours that even if you want limited government, it inevitably rises, and you cannot do so. I actually created several documentaries about this. I go in detail. I talk about the psychology experiments, which are banned, the Stanley Milgram experiment at Stanford Prison. Talked about all that. We gave some demonstrations as well. But in case you missed it or anything, ask some questions if you feel like you want to ask some questions. I'm reading the chat. So I have streamed before, by the way. Maybe that's why I'm more natural with this. Right. But I used to stream on Twitch a little bit. But I was in the politics section on Twitch. I was actually the fastest growing in the politics section on Twitch because I basically like talked to so many of the streamers, and so a lot of them were coming to my chat, and it caused a whole bunch of like
Lynn's, so we had a joke going around the other day because we were talking about MK Ultra, and you know what that is.
Yeah. CIA experiment where they mind controlled people. Yeah.
Right, and this is all legitimate.
It's all real. Yeah.
You can go to, I think I said it the other day. You can all go to CIA.gov and read through declassified documents, and the fact is that nobody really ever has the interest enough to go and read it. Because when the average Joe hears something like that, they just think it's so absurd and crazy sounding that they don't have the longing to go and research it. But you can go read it all for yourselves. But somebody made a joke. They said MK. That's all I have to say. Because we call it Michael Kors. We say Michael Kors instead because it's funny.
Well, the thing is, and I told you before, it's like, although there are actual mind control techniques, the real mind control is people not controlling their own mind with the information that they're consuming, and being aware of what they are consuming. Many people, maybe they get exhausted, they come home from work, they put on the TV. That TV is like there as like a distraction, but that's like when they're at their lowest moment, they're not aware because they exhausted themselves most of the day.
Yep.
So they spend the rest of their day consuming something, not knowing that the images and the stuff that are appearing on the screen might affect them in more ways than they think.
So they're literally consuming the most information during those hours at the time when their mindset is the most vulnerable.
And Carl Jung talks about this in his books. Like, Carl Jung goes very deep. He's the one who came up with this whole idea of shadow work and everything.
Corey's not a religion. Soft logic. We're not attached to any religion.
Because not attached to anything, period.
There's truth in it all. There's truth in it all.
Everything has truth in it. You can learn from everything. And the problem is, like, people want to say, I want to be this identity, I want to be this title, I want to be this politician, it should be this law, it should be that form of government. What you're doing is you're saying, I want to play God, and I want to decide for the natural world what is natural. I want to decide for other human beings how they should live their life and what they should do. And maybe you have some really good ideas, but why do you need, if your ideas are so good, why do you need to mandate that upon others using violence to manifest it?
Right.
Why can't you teach others, bring it to the world, show them through your actions, be a real leader and show through example? But these people in power are not real leaders, and the people who are following them are just as much not real people because they believe that these people are leaders to begin with. That is the real mind control, the belief system, and statism. Sorry, but I'm always going to bring it up because it is the most dangerous superstition, as Larkin Rose calls it. And it's so dangerous that it is the cause for all atrocity in the world. That if you follow orders, suppress your conscience, and not think for yourself, you are a mental slave. You basically make yourself a slave. And Frederick Douglass and all these people I talked about before all prove it.
So Haley said, I really don't feel like that's ever going to change, though. I would assume that she's referring to
the world.
Yeah.
Which is not true. It's like saying, well, the world doesn't. It's like technology's new. You realize that, right? Like we ended chattel slavery in the 1800s. Which again, I'm going to use that because every excuse somebody says against abolishing government or all systems of man-made control over other humans.
Yeah.
Slavery essentially is all connected to chattel slavery. The reason why we ended that was because of morality. Like, I wrote a whole book about this. So and the book is not testament as to why I'm right. The book is detailing what I'm talking about because so many people have so many excuses and justifications for keeping the system that they think is so legitimate.
Right.
It's like, I got it all figured out. I know the best system. Or maybe we all got to come together and decide what the best system is. Okay, but then you want your will imposed on others. How? And how are you going to get things done without violence? Because every law is backed by violence. Leo Tolstoy, the greatest writer of all time, understood this. Lysander Spooner, lawyer.
People are too afraid to stand up to government. Too many people think it has their best interests at heart.
Yeah, so once you shatter that belief system of statism, which is the idea that statism creates the state. That's where the word comes from. Once you shatter the belief that somebody has an inherent authority, which I talked about with the Stanley Milgram experiment, that people, like that one experiment where somebody held up a sign that says, beep twice if you're moving through, and then a security guard held it up, and then everybody beeped. Because they see the security guard, they see the authority as special. They think that somebody in an authority position has more rights than they do. They essentially are creating inequality. So all these people saying, I want equal rights, I want everybody to be equal. They don't consider the fact that politicians are literally unequal by definition because they can do things which other people cannot do. And cops, and you see they abuse their power pretty often too.
Now, again, that's not to say that all cops are bad.
Yeah, it isn't. It's to say that as a title, as an image, as an identity, that's not who they are naturally. They're a human being. The problem is, as they assume themselves as something else, and as other people assume them as something else, they start to become more than what they are, and therefore they create an illusion. And by creating that illusion, they create a lie, and they create deception. So the Stanford prison experiment proves that they can create anybody, that they took some college kids and they said, you can be a guard in the prison. And soon they were abusing their power and they didn't realize they were doing so. They were becoming violent. And then after that experiment was over, which is now it's a banned psychological experiment, they're like, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I violated people's rights. Same thing happened in World War II, where masses of soldiers were following the orders of the few people, suppressing their own conscience. That is statism. Order following. It's simply order following. The belief in authority. Like, there is no vested authority in anyone. We own ourselves. That's it. If you want something done, voluntarily do it. Voluntarism. Look it up. Voluntarism. There's a good website, voluntarist.org, which has like a bunch, voluntarist.com has like a bunch of resources for people and tons of text that I bet nobody has read. If you're conservative or libertarian or liberal, leftist, whatever.
Cece, which one are you talking about? She said
the best experiment, probably Stanford prison experiment or the Stanley Milgram experiment.
Yeah, well, the Stanford prison experiment I watched several times, and it's extremely fucking brutal to watch.
Yeah, so it's like, it shows you that people can be cruel, and people are always going to be cruel. The question is, are you going to give them power? Those people would not be in their positions. Like, I can dress up Dominic. I can dress up as a police guard right now and be like, walk into the room and be like, Dominic, yo, you got to follow my orders right now. You're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
It's like, because I said so. Because I have this badge. Because I have this uniform. It's like, no, it doesn't make you any different from you and me. The belief that other people can do that, and people go through all these rituals, into which they're rituals, where they make someone a president. Like, they literally, it doesn't matter who it is, the best person, it could be a local politician. They're going through a set ritual where they think they have certain powers that other people don't. That's the very problem. Because it's a lie. It's an illusion. And if you justify any lies, you're going to keep justifying more lies until the lie becomes so apparent that everybody says, oh my gosh, we're living in tyranny. And unless they expose the lie in totality, it's just going to end up causing more lies.
Yeah.
So that's why I created my book on honesty, because if you want to really simplify what is the action, it's be honest. Be honest to yourself, be honest to others. And what do you think a politician's going to go up on stage and say, I want this law passed and therefore I want you to be violently complied into doing what I say? They're never going to say that. They're just going to say, I want this law done for this and that benefit. They always go over the benefits. They never explain how it's going to be actually carried out. If you want a rise or a decrease in taxation, you're still legitimizing taxation. And taxation is taking something that does not belong to you. If I own money, and that money is mine, that's ownership. To claim that you have the right over my ownership is to claim that you are my slave master. To claim ownership over me. Because this is the body that I performed my energies, my duties, my time to create this thing.
And there was a big, what was that document? And I watched an interview with this lady from Florida, and she is like one of the heads of, the assembly thing, whatever, and she was being interviewed by this guy, and they brought up this document that was written by someone in Congress, I believe, back in the 1800s, and it was basically saying that, like, we will intentionally manipulate the masses into basically handing over their property to us, or their money, or their finances, or whatever. And she went on to talk about, she's like, slavery wasn't ended with Lincoln. It was just fucking flipped and masked. And instead of, they ended slavery with African Americans, but then what they did was they just enslaved the whole country.
Yeah, Lysander Spooner said that word for word. And again, he's a lawyer, an abolitionist at the time. Abe Lincoln was not an abolitionist, because all the abolitionists were like, we don't want a war, number one.
Abe Lincoln was a Rosicrucian.
He probably was. You're going to be like, this person says. I'm like, probably was. Yeah. But, like, the thing is like, you know, Lysander Spooner said in his quotes. Oh my gosh, you talk about good quotes. You want it? You want the quote?
Hit me with it.
This is fire. So this is a guy we're not taught about in school on purpose. Okay. The pretense that the abolition of slavery was either a motive or justification for the war is a fraud of the same character with that of maintaining the national honor. Who but such usurpers, robbers, and murderers as they ever established slavery? Or what government, except one resting upon the sword, like the one we now have, was ever capable of maintaining slavery? And why did these men abolish slavery? Not from any love of liberty in general, not as an act of justice to the black man himself, but only as a war measure. And because they wanted his assistance and that of his friends in carrying on the war they had undertaken for maintaining and intensifying that political, commercial, and industrial slavery, to which they have subjected the great body of the people, both white and black. And yet these impostors now cry out that they have abolished the chattel slavery of the black man, although that was not the motive of the war, as if they thought they could thereby conceal, atone for, and justify that other slavery which they were fighting to perpetrate, and to render more rigorous and inexorable, it's crazy, right, how he's writing this, than it ever was before. There was no difference of principle, but only of degree, between the slavery they boast to have abolished and the slavery they were fighting to preserve. For all restraints upon men's natural liberty, not necessary for the simple maintenance of justice, are of the nature of slavery and differ from each other only in degree. Like, stinking powerful.
Yeah, it's actually in William Cooper, right?
Bill Cooper, yeah.
Yeah, Bill Cooper, Behold the Pale Horse. That exact quote is in that.
Really?
In that book, yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that exact quote was in there. So, yeah, Lysander Spooner has a huge influence on what's going on nowadays. Like, talk about being ahead of your time. Like, dying 200 years ago and, like, all his stuff coming back to life because he lived at the time. He was a lawyer. He fought the system. And he started his own post office, got shut down by the U.S. government because they want a monopoly on post office, which is, like, ridiculous. And no matter what he did, he got attacked.
Right.
And so, you know, he became an anarchist toward the end of his life. Government is not here to protect anybody's rights.
Right.
It's here to take a moral issue and turn it into a legal one.
Oh, shit.
What's good at doing? It's here to take a moral issue and turn it into a legal one.
Oops.
Yo, hit your video.
Hey, oh God, thank you guys.
Hit your video.
Did it work?
Yeah, but you gotta hit your
Oh God, thank you. Hang on.
hit your video.
There we go. Hang on, let me show you.
Yeah, but you gotta hit
There we go. Hey guys.
Hey.
Hi. Why is it not letting me? I keep hitting it.
your video.
Oh, save. There we
There
go.
you go.
Hi.
Hi.
You guys are quite the little friggin' brainiacs over there. Holy cow.
So that's Cece. She's a forensic psychologist out in Chicago.
Awesome.
Yeah, what's your name? Corey?
I'm Corey. Nice to meet you. Corey Angela is my full name.
Wow, that brain is on fire.
Thanks. It's honestly, I will say, it's like dealing with this knowledge makes you way more mentally sharp, and also if you have a better diet, I would say.
Yeah.
I mean, like I'm not trying.
Oh
to,
yeah.
It's just
If you eat carrots, you're gonna be just like you.
no raw meat. Actually, I know it sounds really strange. I was talking to Dominic about this before, but it's becoming a trend now on TikTok. Maybe you guys seen some of it, but
What, the
raw
lion
animal
diet?
products
The raw meat.
Yeah, so I do tartar, raw milk, raw eggs, all of it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's all a lie that you're gonna get sick. I mean, you get good quality stuff, but
Well, wait.
you
Have
talk
you
about
heard of the lion diet?
Yeah, the carnivore diet is another way. There's a lot of names for carnivore. It's like primal paleo carnivore, and then some people call it the lion, and it is like so.
Oh,
it's very popular.
Thing. Yeah, I'm a super strict vegetarian.
All good. It's all good. Listen, people got to find out what works best for them. It's just like anything else, you know. It's like you can't say there is one way to do it, but it is definitely shattering a lot of the myths from the 80s. And actually, I talked about all this. I know more about health than anything else, which is the funny thing, Dominic, because I talk about all this other stuff. But it's like I can probably talk about health even longer.
But I think I totally agree. I mean, that's your wheelhouse, but your diet has so much to do with everything. Your sleeping, food, everything. The way you age, everything.
For sure.
On like a lower level of what you're saying, of course.
Okay.
Spit it out like 16 million syllables of words.
Oh yeah, you just did a live, right?
Yeah, I did. I got some of your friends.
I saw that. I saw that when I was on TikTok. She actually popped up.
Did you? Did you?
Yeah, she did pop up for me.
That's only my, what is it? My second or third? I think it's my third.
It's probably because I was watching your live.
Yeah,
with
so
her.
I was just gonna say it's funny because one of I was talking to somebody and they were like it's so weird because I was scrolling through my TikTok and people that you were doing a live with keep popping up on my feed and I've never seen them before ever, and I'm like, damn, bro, that TikTok algorithm is crazy. That shit is crazy.
Because you know, you guys know TikTok is recording you because me and Dominic were talking today on the phone. So they record everything you say and then they just blended our algorithms.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I think because I watched you guys like live, like literally the day before, like 2 days before. It was like
you don't think that the conspiracy theory of them recording you and as soon as you hang up, you go on TikTok, it's literally everything. Watch, we're gonna hang up and it's gonna say the lion died.
Yeah. There's somebody in my summit did a whole presentation on that called Streetwise Privacy and Security, and he's like super into all. He's probably listening right now. Actually, he might be. Mike, if you're out there,
all
Mike.
The government, everybody's
producer. Yeah.
What is your summit? What does that mean?
Darn it! Why don't people know what a summit is? He's asked the same question. It's called the End of Slavery Summit. It's basically a huge conference with like a bunch of speakers. And I had about 50 speakers that I interviewed and hundreds of resources. It's all for free. You can go to endofslavery.org.
I heard you saying you do everything for free. Listen, you need to maximize on your knowledge and you need to pay, why shouldn't you pay?
No. I'm sorry. I kind of, I live my life like pretty, like I have principles that I live by. I don't want to be dependent on making content to make a living because then I'm not doing it out of my heart. And I like to produce out of my heart. I mean, that's just the honest truth.
Okay. Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But this isn't your job. That summit is not your job. It's something you're doing as...
I mean, I put like all my effort into making videos and stuff. Yeah, the summit was virtual. So I did the interviews virtual. Somebody asked in the comments.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's all virtual. It's all the recordings are there. I started it on December 1st of last year, and it lasted for about 16 days. So we had thousands of people. It was way bigger than I actually expected. But that information is always going to be there, and I'm going to refer people back to it because it's like an all-in-one compendium of knowledge. It's really nice. So if somebody's new to like all the concepts I talk about, and you're like, you do, what is you, a psychologist? Or forensic psychologist?
Yeah,
that's really cool because I feel like having somebody like you watch this and really dissect it, like if you read The Most Dangerous Superstition by Larkin Rose, I think that book is just mind-shattering. Like this knowledge that about statism, is this belief system is going to inevitably erupt the internet. It's just a matter of time. Like it really.
I don't know. Yeah, what's like the theory behind it? I have not heard of
it. So statism is the belief.
Tell me a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's all good. I'm used to repeating myself in live streams. I used to do 6-hour Twitch streams. I'm surprised I'm even able to do like 3 anymore. I don't know how I did 6 back. I did it like 3 times a week. I'm like, what? Yeah, and it's crazy stuff. And if you're on Twitch, you get to deal with a bunch of trolls and people come in. It's actually quite nice on your chat. Your chat's pretty cool. Maybe because you have good moderation. I don't know.
Yeah. I was never too bad with trolls, but last couple nights there's been some weirdos in there, and then I had the mod. Yeah,
it's gonna happen. Sorry, I don't mean to distract from it. So statism is the belief in authority, that there's a vested authority in certain human beings. So like a good example is a cop or a politician is seen as special or having more rights than the average person. Or a piece of paper is seen as like the holy grail, and like you have to follow it. And so people believe in it. It's like a religion essentially, and call it the biggest religion in the world. People basically pray to government lords, and they have their rituals and ceremonies to basically get things done in their life. Like, I need to be free. Please, can you grant me freedom? And it's basically operates like a religion. It's a mental virus. It's a mental situation. I'm actually getting together with a bunch of health practitioners right now to come up with a very professional seminar based on like tons of studies to prove this in another light. But there's already so much other information about it. So it's just a matter of time for the world to come to see it. And that book just breaks down in every aspect.
I love that mental virus.
Well, yeah. I mean, because technically it's like something that it spreads among people, right? They're indoctrinated into the world and they kind of learn it immediately in the school system. Follow orders, obey authority. Authority is morality. And that sort of lives with them for the rest of their life. And even you can even see it with the belief in Santa during Christmas. Like you believe that there's this person who's there and you know, you're so invested in that belief system that from day one that you think it's actually legit and that it exists.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not against the foundations of Christmas. Like you can still celebrate Christmas, but we don't have to lie to people so they can imagine. Like it's one thing
we're literally lying to our children from day one. Let me tell you guys the story. When my daughter was little, she was, I don't know how old she was, maybe 5th grade, and she found out her tooth fell out, and I said like, "Oh, the tooth fairy's coming," and she was like, "Mom, is the tooth fairy real?" It was like dead eye question. I'm like, oh damn. So I was like, well, you know, I couldn't lie, so I told her, and then she was pissed.
Yeah.
She's like, wait a minute, what about the bunny, and what about
then it all snowballs.
And that's what happens. You understand the superstition.
Me, it's the crazy liar. I'm the big liar mom who created lies from the beginning of time.
What's everybody's thought on the Rothschild family?
Why? Is there something going on with them other than the norm?
Other than the norm?
Well, the fact that people know about them is probably enough to say there's probably other people that we don't know about.
Yeah.
But
what is it about on Paris Hilton's sister marrying one of the Rothschilds?
But like that's an example of statism, right? So these people believe they're born into a certain bloodline. They need to keep their bloodline alive, and it's all about their bloodline, keeping certain genetics, blah blah blah.
Yeah, incest
scenario. But
a nicer way to say like incest and keeping that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, all sorts of crazy practices, and that's because they're mentally crazy. But in as above, so below, that relates to our population and our mental illnesses, but. That's why I can kind of say statism is somewhat an illness, but I don't like to go down that route, especially since you don't want to identify with an illness or identify with any one thing. It can cause some problems psychologically if you're aware of certain people who've talked about that in psychology. But
wait, what do you mean? What are you
identifying with the disease? Like saying I'm a diabetic. It's like, well, then you can't get out of being a diabetic.
Right.
We're talking about Dominic yesterday.
Well, so when I was being an addict.
I loved what you said. Like,
so I did a video on it, and one of the reasons that I got out of Alcoholics Anonymous was because, and for the record, I did AA because in the program, AA works through the 12 steps faster than Narcotics Anonymous, and for me to go through those steps, I couldn't linger on these steps, and normally it would take you like 3 years to complete them in Narcotics Anonymous. And ultimately continue to lead to my relapses. So I did AA so that I could work through them faster and try and get to the root cause of why I was fucking making these decisions in the first place faster. Yeah. But I did a video on what the only thing that I didn't agree with about the program, because I think the program's great and it's like religion. Religion will help you find God or whatever, but not until you transcend religion will you know God truly. You know what I mean?
Can't stay in a box.
Right. So AA is like, it'll bring you to the doorstep of the problem, but then it keeps you on that doorstep because what they constantly pound into your head in every single meeting is you have to identify as an addict. Every time you raise your hand, it's hello, I'm Dominic, I'm an addict. And I'm always going to be. They even tell you, like, it's in the fucking big book. I'll pull it out right there. It says you are an addict. You're always going to be an addict. You're always going to have this disease, and you're always going to be fighting this every single day. And it's like, well, no, I'm not, because I wasn't a fucking addict before I started using drugs. So how do I get back to that point? You know what I mean?
The guy's name I'm talking about, I think I remember. I might get this a little wrong. His name is Thomas Soares. All right, and I know this because I'm friends with somebody who's also an ex-Scientologist. Where
we were talking about that the other day too.
Yeah, they study like the problems with modern day psychiatry, and then he's somebody I interviewed in my summit as well. So he is practicing independent Scientology. He's essentially bringing to the world his knowledge when he was in Scientology, the same way that Mark Paccio is bringing people his knowledge from when he was in the Church of Satan and all this stuff. So it's all coming to light, and I'm basically bringing it all together, and that's why all my projects that I'm starting are all very collaborative. And I encourage you to get involved too, by the way. I love the fact that you guys do this live stream and everything you guys are doing.
That's a huge project you're taking on, and give you a ton of credit, like to try to pull these mammoth theories and ideas and bring them all together and integrate them.
Yeah. It's not easy saying to people that all government is slavery and that there is no right form of government, and then seeing people debate about all the symptoms, like this candidate or that candidate or this issue or that issue, and then, you know, there's people talking about the banking system. It's like, for me, these are all symptoms of an underlying belief system that has yet to be understood in the populace. Again, this belief system. And it's just a matter of time, like I said, for that knowledge to get out there. So that's the point of the End of Slavery Summit, is to show that slavery exists through this mental slavery, which is the root to all slavery. And it happens in our own minds, which is why it's so hard for ourselves to confront it and come to realize it. Because, you know, why for many thousands of years we have not confronted this or see this as a problem? Because it's often hard to see our own beliefs that we are partaking in, and to realize that we ourselves are lying to ourselves. That's
I think you guys aren't going to like this. I know you're not. I know you're not going to like this, Dominic. The Scientology guy, Ron Hubbard.
L. Ron Hubbard.
Yeah, I mix him and the other guys, the Mormon guy. I always say their first and last names wrong. You know what I'm talking about? The Mormon guy.
Like the guy that founded Mormons?
The son of him.
Oh, I don't know.
He's in prison for pedophilia.
I don't know.
What?
Well, those people are very influential because of their power, and then their power ends up corrupting them because they keep it for themselves, and then they end up doing bad things. So it's like,
but wait,
thing.
L. Ron Hubbard or Hubbard L. Ron? Oh,
L. Ron Hubbard.
Good old Ron, I feel like, had a little psychosis going on.
Yeah, he was kind of off his rocker. But the thing is, and I talked about this the other day in one of my lives, is I said that the teachings of Scientology weren't bad. It wasn't that the teachings were bad, because if you read like several of his beginning books, the teachings basically just it was just a regurgitation of stuff that's been around for forever already, and it was just compiled into his teachings. The problem with Scientology, and where it becomes like a pyramid scheme, is that you're like constantly never reaching the top. You're consistently being walked through these fucking stages, being told that you're going to receive more, and you just never do.
Because you have to pay.
Well, yeah.
Well, let me explain this. He actually, and I got this from my friend Scott Gordon, is his name. Okay, he was deep inside in Scientology. Like, he knew celebrities and everything. Like, he came out. He's not too public with it because he's already being targeted by many members within it. And he's come out with it recently in like the past year. Okay, he was on my summit. Like I said, you can watch his talk. His website is Free Scientology Center, I think, something like Free Scientology. He does it all for free, educating the public. He says it was meant to be free. He said, like, Hubbard's own writings and what he said, they were some of the first freedom fighters, like fighting for freedom. He said it was meant to be free. It wasn't meant to be a church, all this stuff. And it ended up turning into that over time.
Yeah. Why? Because tax. It was money.
So they didn't stick to the principle.
Wait. Yeah. He's the Scientology guy. Yes. Is Scientology, that's the one you have to pay for each level that you go up. You have to buy the books. Somebody in your chat said, that is Scientology a gang? I think they are a gang / cult. What do you think? Is that insulting, Corey, to hear that maybe they're a cult?
No, I don't think anything. It's not insulting. I don't get insulted. But the thing is, there's many people who troll us and say all sorts of things. Like, what do you expect? I'm an anarchist. There's going to be people who think all sorts of things about me. They're going to think I'm chaotic and all.
No, not. They're talking about Scientology.
But so it's like what he said. Any sort of ideology, anything. I mean, you can learn from all of it. So I'm not going to say it's evil or inherently good or inherently evil. Like, human beings aren't inherently good or inherently evil. Like, everybody is programmable. It depends on what they do with the knowledge. And flat earth could be a cult, and veganism could be a cult. Vegetarian, like, if you decide and say, my worldview is going to be attached and determined by this singular thing or this set of words or whatever, that's what makes it a cult or a religion.
Well, yeah, when you're trying to when you're brainwashing people to have control and power and control.
Yeah, well, if you're brainwashing, I mean, that's lying, a form of lying, which is a form of wrongdoing, which I would consider a crime. And, you know, so, but the problem is government is always going to be way worse than that, because, like, these are organizations that are mostly operating voluntarily. And so even if they brainwash people, like, the whole premises of government is violence is guaranteed no matter what. And it's the one that everyone partakes in. So people don't have to participate in Scientology, and people can expose the problems with Scientology like they are now. Like now, like most people are exposing it. Had her huge sow and all this stuff. But, you know, Scott Gordon, who's my friend, and he came out of that church, he's like, hey, just because it's an evil thing does not mean we should disregard it altogether. There's a lot of powerful knowledge in it. Which is why you got to network with everyone in my community, man. Yeah. They're all going to love you.
Yeah, that'll be fun for you. You'll love talking about that one.
Guest forever.
I think anytime you start getting money involved, I mean, like the Catholic religion is, they don't do it in buying books, but yeah, the more money you donate, as soon as you start mixing money in with things, everything gets a little twisted.
Well, it's the belief in money. It's not money itself. So just as it's the belief in a problem, it's the belief that money is actually value, or that it's actually a thing that attains happiness.
Yeah.